Well, hello, everyone. This is Nate Conroy from the Midwest Energy Research Consortium. I'd like to welcome you to today's event. We know that we had quite a few of you on earlier in the day for our Q2 member meeting. For those of you that weren't able to join that member meeting, we'll make a recording of that available to you. As a reminder right off the top that this meeting is also being recorded. I know that we have quite a few people joining us today on the call. We also have a lot of members and folks who let us know that after the pandemic year, they were really excited for the 4th of July weekend and are getting out early, probably up to the North Woods or Door County or some other beautiful place in Wisconsin, maybe with their families. So we will be making a recording of this available as we always do with our events up on our YouTube channel, and we'll let you know when that is there. I'll say one thing that's really exciting about doing this event virtually. We love the in-person stuff, obviously, and we're excited to do those again. But we have folks joining this call from something like 8 different time zones. So, this is the Midwest Energy Research Consortium, but for the purposes of this meeting, we're just thrilled to have people from San Diego and Rhode Island and Florida and Liverpool, England, maybe other places. I don't even know, for other folks on the call, but just really exciting to have such a awesome lineup of speakers today. We're going to be hearing today from Johnson Controls, Eaton, Clark Energy, Excel, from Bloom Energy, from Wisconsin Healthcare Professionals for Climate Action, from Focus on Energy. So just a really incredible lineup that we have today. And so we're excited to get started. Throughout today, just a couple kind of logistics things. We would love it if you would participate at MWork at the Midwest Energy Research Consortium. The whole idea is to form a consortium to collaborate as we help elevate our region's expertise and our leadership around energy innovation. And so we welcome you to chime in, especially in the chat, and we'll make sure to offer up questions or comments, prompts that you put in there. So each one of our speakers, we've kind of reserved some time at the end of their presentations for discussion and for some question and answer, and all of them have really agreed to make available themselves to answer those questions, whether it be in this call or afterwards. So just really want to encourage participation throughout the call. My name is Nathan Conroy. I'm the Director of Market Insights here at the Midwest Energy Research Consortium, which basically means that it's my job to listen to our 90 plus or so members about their interests, and then come together to put on events, write white papers, do projects that allow us to collaborate and again, elevate our region when it comes to energy, power, and controls. And so one thing I wanted to do right off the top was kind of explain why this event, why now. Those members, as they have come together in working groups, this topic around healthcare facilities is one that has come up for quite some time. And in fact, I believe it was even in 2019 to 2020, we actually had lined up some speakers to speak to this topic. And then, obviously those healthcare professionals became really busy dealing with the pandemic. And so we sort of had to, postpone the event. But I think that the pandemic, and I'm sure you'd agree, has just elevated even more the focus that we all have around our healthcare facilities and taking good care of the people who work in those healthcare facilities, as well as taking good care of the people who are in those facilities trying to get better. And so energy innovation can play a big role in that, in those goals. And so we're really excited for today's topic. This is going to be a great day. And so, with all of that being said, I'd like to just go ahead and launch right into this and get started with our first speaker today. My role today, I'll try to introduce all the speakers and then also help to facilitate some of the discussion after each one of their presentations. But again, the real hope here is that all of us on the call bring our own expertise and our own perspectives to this event today, and we have some really good discussion. So certainly hope that my voice is, definitely not the one that you're hearing from all the time today. Really excited. So for our first keynote today, our first speaker, we're really excited to have Simi Ranajee join us. She's joining us all the way from Florida, but she was recently in Wisconsin, so we're glad that she got that experience. Simi is with Johnson Controls. She's with strategy, sales, marketing and communications, and healthcare there. She has over 25 years of experience in communications, selling, and marketing complex products and services to various industries. In addition to corporate roles, Simi co-founded Mission MEAM 5 and serves on the Women's Board for the American Cancer Society, the American Patient Rights Association, and volunteers in many other roles. She has also received numerous awards and was named one of Chicago's Rising Stars by Today's Chicago Woman, named 40 Under 40. Simi was a former host of Bombay Broadcast Network, a responsibility that she received as part of being named Miss India Worldwide. So just thrilled to have Simi kind of start us off today and ground us in why this event and this discussion today is so important. So welcome to everybody on the call. And Simi, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much, Nate. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
And I look like do I look like I'm in a forest? I don't know about this background right now. I just
yeah, a forest or down in the lawn or something. So yeah.
Okay, well, if you can see me, I'll just continue. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Midwest Energy Consortium, for having us. On behalf of Johnson Controls, we're really excited to be part of this incredible organization and this meeting today. My topic today is probably going to be a little bit different than what you've been hearing. When I had the privilege of talking to Nate about why I joined Johnson Controls and my background, we kind of flipped the switch a little bit about what we're going to be talking about and not your traditional energy consumption kind of topics that you have. So thank you, and we can just get started. Am I able to drive this, or Emily, can you just advance to the next slide?
Yep, you should be able to use your keyboard and advance to the next slide.
It's not working. And I'm not able to. Can you do that? There we go.
I think, did it work?
I don't know if I did that or someone else did that. But it worked. So when we think about grounded in the why, which is the topic of our conversation today, grounded, just like many words in the English language, can mean many things depending upon its context or our experiences. So when I talk about being grounded to somebody who is very spiritual and thinks about it being a part of the earth and how we become one with nature, that's one definition. If I tell my children that they're grounded, it's a very different definition. From a researcher, when I did my PhD, we talked about grounded theory a lot. And to an engineer, maybe some of you in the audience, it has a different meaning. So when we think about meanings, how do we react to them and how do others receive them? Emily, it's not advancing. There we go. So in terms of our experiences that ground us, I'm going to share a few of mine. And I know this is a very busy slide, and I tried to just put on the highlights. But I'm tall for an Indian girl. I'm about 5'10". And years ago, an aunt of mine signed me up to do a pageant. Well, in my culture and in my family specifically, being on stage wasn't as respected as an education or being an academician. So I did it for the experience. And the interesting thing was, it was my first lesson in marketing. I got on stage and all these women had so much confidence and they were able to articulate what they wanted for their life and out of the world. And I actually won Miss India. It was Illinois, then USA, then Miss India Worldwide. It was originally called Miss India Universe, but they changed it to India Worldwide after I had won. Now, every winner has to go to India and do an initiative. And I researched at the time, and population growth was a big issue. So my initiative was zero population growth. And I was given a white van, boxes of condoms, and I was very naive. And I was told to go into the villages and talk to the men about their virility. Two-parent households should only have 2 children. And that was the initiative. So after about 2 weeks of crying and not being able to get my communications across, I came home and I was at my aunt's house and I said, this isn't working. And she said, what's your goal? And I said, the goal is for people to understand that it's not a numbers game, that you can't have more kids and hope that one of them brings you out of poverty, or, it's not more mouths to feed. And she said, well, why aren't you talking to the women? And I realized that was my authentic self. I was able to go in and educate. And instead of condoms, I ended up giving out ovulation watches and calendars. I sat in circles with these women and empowered them and talked about how, when they ovulate, what time of month, that they can close their legs, that they were blamed, and I hate this, for the sex of their child, and didn't realize about the XY chromosomes. So that sense of empowerment for me and for them changed the game. And it was my first lesson in marketing, I would say, and also diversity and inclusion, because these women didn't understand how powerful they were. After I started looking at diversity and inclusion, I was aware that people do different things in different cultures and countries. And I started teaching etiquette in the US. And I was asked by a friend who runs, I don't know if you've heard of Common Threads, but it was started by Art Smith, Oprah chef, and a dear friend of mine. And she said, can you do etiquette training? So we started teaching these kids basic etiquette training, 7 to 12 years of age. And the kids loved it, but the parents didn't know how to set a basic table or eye contact or communication. So we ended up writing a book that was given to the children, but it was actually for the parents. So I went from being, a winner of a beauty pageant to being an author. And then later, rolled forward a few years, I was sitting in a conference, a medical conference, and the speaker said that we are the first generation that's going to outlive our children. And that really resonated with me. And I thought, how is that possible? The foods that we eat have changed. Our environment has changed, the chemicals that are going on in the world, everything. And it just really spoke to me. I was reading a number of other books at the time, everything from Omnivore's Dilemma, if anybody remembers that, to others. And I thought I need to do something. And that actually inspired me to go and get my doctorate in public health. Did that at the age of 37. And then about 3 years ago, as you see in the top right-hand corner, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. And after being in healthcare for 35 years, being on the client side or the corporate side of healthcare, from devices, diagnostics, pharmaceuticals, writing patient journeys, working in facilities management and devices, here I was now the patient. And it gave me such a different perspective of why we do what we do. I was texting a dear friend of mine in Chicago at the time, and I said, I need a lobectomy. Talk about being grounded. You start questioning everything. And instead of lobectomy, spell check changed it to lovectomy. And it ended up being this brand. And if you can see my children on the right, they're a little older now, but everything turned into gold in my heart. So this is how things, and I'm sure in your life you have similar kind of highlight moments that have made you who you are, that have changed who you've become. And I will share that some of these were profound. Some of these were just a catalyst. Others really, really did affect me. And so maybe just take a minute and think about what those situations were for you. I'm going to try and advance. There you go. Thank you. During my lung cancer surgery, when they removed my upper left lobe, I actually flatlined. And I will tell you, that was one of the most profound experiences I have ever had. And I know it sounds crazy, but it really was a blessing, because I realized that my time left here, I really want to make a difference. And being on that patient side, I remember being wheeled into my surgery and looking up and thinking, why doesn't anyone paint the ceilings? Like, why are they just these ugly yellow ceilings? It might be the last thing I see. And I came out of that and I realized that my why for doing things has got to align with my corporate job, that it can't just be something that isn't going to be productive and purposeful. And that's why I came on to Johnson Controls. We do with what we do our careers, we choose things in our life from trust. And can you advance it, please? I see it's going there. Let's see if I can. Yep. From trust. So a few years ago, I worked for a company called Edelman. And if you're familiar with the trust barometer, trust is really important in our lives. Stakeholders are more important than shareholders. You know, this 20-year-old survey in 28 countries, and I would suggest if you get a chance, just Google the trust barometer. You will be amazed at what comes out. How we have changed over the years. In 2018, they came out and were telling CEOs of organizations that rather than being the stoic figure, CEOs today and leaders today had to be approachable. They had to talk about their vulnerability, their families, what they like to do, and they would be more successful. When I coach physician leaders, a lot of times we would talk about for them to relate with their patients and have more confidence, it would actually be talking about, do you run? Do you swim? Do you have outside activities? What makes you human? So really looking at our jobs and our professions in a different light will actually make us better at what we do. One of the reasons that I came to Johnson Controls is our CEO, George Oliver, is on the Business Roundtable, and he is the chair of the Sustainability Initiative. And I'm so proud of that. And I've seen him and I've spoken to him about meetings and initiatives that we're doing, not only for ourselves, but also our customers and our partners. Thank you. You can keep advancing it. A little bit about Johnson Controls. The reason that I'm here is if you can look at, everything from how many customers we have, what type of charitable contributions we've done, what our metrics are around, but that's just part of it. And we can just kind of go through these slides a little bit faster, Emily, if we can, thanks. We have this product called Open Blue. And actually, there's something called Code Blue, which spoke to me, as I'm sure you can understand after I flatlined, that I know what my family went through. I know what the nurses went through when I was gone. And to have that technology that actually allows for not only connectivity with all the things going on within the room, within the building, within the facility, but to relate it to the patient and how it makes such an impact. Keep going. Here's some of the things that we do, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with Johnson Controls. You can keep going, and I'll share this deck with anybody who'd like it later. The smart patient room on this slide is really what spoke to me. Ways that can be voice activated, EMR scheduling, everything from when you're a patient, as some of you hopefully don't have to experience, but everything from the temperature in the room, being able to control the blinds, the TV. I mean, they sound so insignificant, but when you're vulnerable and you're anxious, having any kind of control just makes for better, healthier outcomes. Keep going. So this slide, if you've ever listened to Simon Sinek, he does a TED Talk. I did one as well, and he was one of my inspirations. He talks a lot about the why. And that's my short time here today, is really about the why. We know what we do, right? What are the products or services? What are we doing? We know how we do it. What does the install look like? How long does it take to do an install? Who needs to get involved, from architecture to engineering to outcomes? But really, does your organization, does your job allow you to think about the why? Do you think about the purpose? Do you think about people like me being in that patient room and going through flatlining maybe, or being able to call a code and have immediately everything that needs to be done for that patient care happen, from the lights being dimmed to the nurse call center, to the family leaving the room, to the patient being calm, and realize that, we can bring them back. So I challenge you to think about, as we go through today, and everyone's talking about their great initiatives and sustainability and energy and other things that are happening within our buildings and our facilities, really, what's your why? Why does that exist? Continue. Here's some things to challenge you as you're thinking about your why. Does it correlate with your calling? What's your conviction? Church isn't only on Sundays. Do you have a mission statement? Do you have a vision for your life and your work? I'm I know I talk to my kids about this a lot. I've talked to my employees a lot about this. When you talk about reference points, what are your decision and actions? What has changed you? And do you have a reason for your life's work? What do you go back to? On the days that I'm frustrated because something might have happened wrong, or we've got a hospital that's down and we need to make sure that we're there, I go back to my why. Why am I doing this, and am I making an impact for all of the constituents? And the last thing is just what we've talked about. Focus on your purpose. What do we do? Why we do it? Do you get burnt out? I actually have my why. I have a picture of my kids in the lobectomy t-shirts on my wall that I look at when I'm just like now, or when I'm on conference calls all day long with Zoom fatigue or whatever else it might be. So thank you for hearing my story. I'd love to hear yours as well. And think about your why. And organizations that you work with, as we work through environments of care, are they purposeful? And do they have a why as well? Thank you, Nate. And thank you to Midwest Energy Research Consortium.
Absolutely. Thank you, Simi. I know that when we were putting together, the agenda for this event, and we got to hear a bit about your story. Emily, switch back one slide, just if you would. I know that we thought, oh my gosh, we got to put Simi first, because the opportunity to sort of remind ourselves that in today's discussions, we're not just talking about any facility or just kind of some random building, but in fact a place where there's some really important work going on, really important moments in people's lives. I'm going to drop into the chat right now a link to Simi. She actually did a TED Talk, and I put a link there. You can find that on YouTube to just get even more inspired. But this is really wonderful. We do have some time for questions, but I'll go ahead and kind of open that up. Simi, I am curious. I'll tap into your background and experience in communications. How have you? Tell me more about your experience, I guess, with talking about healthcare facilities and energy innovation, kind of given some of these, these auxiliary outcomes that are important, not just in terms of saving energy in a facility, but also what these innovations can do for both patient wellness as well as even employee wellness, right? Yeah, employee benefits.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more to those types of benefits and how you've maybe been able to communicate them to key stakeholders?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about the individuals within a healthcare environment, everything from administration, physicians to patients, each one of them are affected by the environment that we create. So I don't know if you're familiar with something called second victims, but many hospitals and physicians that I've worked with, there's something called second victims, where physicians take on the burden and the stress and fatigue, why their suicide rate is quite high, of their patients, because they feel so responsible. And I've had multiple conversations and gone through and walked halls and rooms that they can relax in, and do they have sunlight? Is there energy flow? Especially during COVID, what is it that they need to be able to impact their own health and their own outcomes to be better for their patients? A lot of times we just think about, okay, here's a room, here's what's happening, especially after COVID with infection control. There's been so many conversations about what we need to do for health and wellness that some of the intangibles we don't think really correlate to healthy business outcomes and healthy patient outcomes, meaning that if somebody has 5 minutes to go and jump into a yoga room and do something, is that going to be better for themselves and their patients? What's the flow of traffic? How are we triaging today? Wearing a mask all day, can they go out and get fresh air? Do they have a 15-minute break? How are we setting up this environment of care for the best outcomes for everybody? And I've been in administration at Northwestern. I've been I'm Indian, so I joke a lot of my relatives are physicians. And with me coming in from a public health background, each person has a different relationship with the environment that they're in, whether they're serving or they're receiving care. And how are we able to affect that? And it's interesting because, as I mentioned, even there's something called the smart pillow, and I was so excited about it. And everyone's like, oh, these are sunk costs, meaning that there's things that we really can't get reimbursed in. And I thought, I don't believe that. It's not about the money, but if we can actually show physiological benefits to things from holding a pillow or being able to control something because your anxiety goes down, or you can look at activities of daily living because I dropped my pillow and now I have to pick it up. These are all encouraging things for that patient and that patient outcome. So when you ask about, what are things that we're doing today, are we truly putting ourselves in that patient position, in that physician position when they're coming into the office every day? All my family members would send me pictures like they were going to war when COVID first hit. And they're like, it's horrible. They couldn't see their own family. They were staying in hotels. And I did some speaking on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and everybody talked about patient populations. And I said, can I share something with my family, what's happening? My cousin just had a baby girl and he wasn't able to see her for 3 months because he was in the COVID floor and they were worried about her. So we're all so affected by everything that happens, especially within healthcare facilities. And we're so privileged to serve in this area and to be able to make a difference. So does that answer your question? I know I was a little bit on a tangent, but I get really passionate about it.
Yeah, no, thank you. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, if you would kind of signal that, I guess, to Emily, either put something in the chat or I'm not sure if we have a raised hand functionality on this one, but just signal something in the chat and we can get a question to you. Simi, yeah. I'll pause for just a second to make sure we include anybody who'd like to ask anything. Simi, I'm curious, one theme that we'll be talking about throughout today is sort of next steps. In other words, here at MWork, the role that we want to play is to help identify, both sort of opportunities as well as, potential things that obstacles or, things that we can work on, get better, and help to drive the adoption of some of these solutions and kind of increase that rate. In your experience, can you think of, what do you see as sort of opportunities where we as an industry, often as solution providers, what are you hearing from the folks that you work with in healthcare about some of their pain points or some of the things that they need from us in terms of helping to drive adoption of these solutions? What are you hearing?
Nate, that's such a great question, because with all the technological advances in other industries, healthcare is definitely a laggard. We're slow to adopt. We're definitely on the defense a lot. I remember, and I'm going to age myself, but back in the day when HIPAA first came about and we had to install EMRs and EHRs, oh my God, to get physicians to even go into a computer, a lot of the older physicians retired. And then for others, we had to bring in somebody to walk the rooms with them to fill out the EHR, whether it was Cadence or Epic, whatever it was. So I think understanding that part of our jobs is education, is how can we make that transition easier, whether they're in administration or clinical, for that setting. What is that educational process that we can take a few minutes and understand that this wasn't part of their history. This wasn't part of their upbringing. Even years ago, after I had lung cancer, somebody came to me with CBD. And I went to one of my relatives who's a pain management doc, and he said, this wasn't part of our education. I'm not working with CBD, because it's something that, you're used to being on top of your game, and then all of a sudden new things are coming in. Now, forward-thinking institutions, we know, have innovation arms, they have testing arms, they have other areas to come forward and understand this. But I really do think a large part of our job is that educational component and making sure that they're part of the process as we create new technologies and new innovations.
Thank you, Simi. Yeah. Emily, any questions from members of the audience that you've received?
Okay.
Fantastic. Simi, one more then for me. Watch out, folks. This is going to be a reoccurring theme. I come with lots of questions, so you got to jump in if you don't want to. Yeah. So I'm curious about, just thinking about Johnson Controls, and one thing that I noticed about, one of the themes is sort of this connection between different systems in the healthcare setting, right? So we're not just talking about power, but also power is going to be, connected to things like security, and you even mentioned, some of the internal communications that are really present and critical in a healthcare facility. Can you just talk about, again, with this theme of how do we help drive adoption of these technologies that the Midwest region has some real leadership in? How should we be thinking about those technologies and those solutions as part of an integrated, connection to other systems in the healthcare setting? What would you say to that?
So that's a great question. Again, God, Nate, you're just rattling them off. But when I think of what we do at Johnson Controls, I think of everything from, energy and sustainability. And, I was at a facility, and I'm new to the organization. I'm less than 3 months in, but you know why I switched and why I'm here. And I was at a plant, and I saw our chillers being pretty much connected to each other, and understanding that within 1 hour we had 8% of energy savings. And I was like jumping out of my chair. I'm like, oh my God, how did we do this? What's happening? We just connected the chillers, and we already had this, but the facility didn't know that we could do that. And I took a step back and I thought, what does this mean, right? If we go back to, okay, this is what we did. This is how we did it. We connected the chillers. We didn't have to have all of them blowing at once. We didn't have to have all this happening. But what does that mean to the hospital? How much savings is that? What does that mean for personnel? What does that mean for the patients? What does that mean? What's the why through all of that story? And so when you talk about the connectivity and how we can do that, we can do it, what we can do for it, whether, it's product, but really, what does that mean for the why and the outcome? So being able to have that knowledge is powerful. What's happening on another floor? Why is a fire system, a security system, the HVAC system? How do we know what's happening at a global level, at a bird's eye view in all of my facilities, and who needs help where? Where can I deploy resources, personnel? Where do finances need to be deployed? This is all information that we run better, more efficiently. And at the end, we're better for the patients because we're focusing on them versus focusing on all these other things that we have to do. I think that you're frozen, no?
Am I frozen? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Kelly, Emily, can we unmute Kelly, or Kelly, if you can unmute yourself, please go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I'm trying to move my screen over.
We can hear you. We can see you. Looks good.
You can hear me and see me? Good.
Yep.
Yep.
Hold on one second. Let me see if I can just.
And I'm still grounded in nature. I don't know how this happened on my Zoom call. We used to Teams a lot.
There. So
it must be that spiritual part of me.
I guess.
It's just lovely to hear your message and your angle. And I'm speaking later today, so there's some similarities in I think where we come from and our messaging. I think one of the things that's coming to mind for me, so I'm an occupational therapist. I have been for 30 years. Every day, like, my language is activities of daily living and human occupation, how we occupy time and space. I think one of the things that I think is an interesting part of the energy conversation. So I've worked in healthcare for a long time. I've worked in alternative healthcare and holistic healthcare, and I've worked in mainstream medicine. And energy, there's this external discussion of energy. It's this thing that we use, we access, make use of resources, we power up our lights, we power on our computers. But in the holistic realm, it's very much an internal conversation. It's, your energy level, your vibration, and we talk about them as if they're two separate things, but they're one and the same. It's our eyeballs that detect, like, there's not enough light, so we need to turn the lights on. Our body temperature registers that there's not enough heat, so we need to crank up the thermometer. Right now it's too much heat, so we turn on the air conditioner, but it's all regulated by everything that's within our physical body. And yes. I think that's a really key part of the conversation, because I think it's something that gets missed in terms of, we are so intelligently designed, and we bring so much intelligence to this whole discussion. I think with COVID and the health of our teams, the health of our clinicians, I know from me, when I get home, if I take my shoes off and just stand on the earth, you know, we live on a farm and it's very beautiful pastoral countryside. Like just the few moments of taking off my shoes and reconnecting to the earth. It sounds, you know, once upon a time that was woo-woo conversation, like, oh, you're granola, you know, it's like it's real. Like we draw our energy from the earth. We get our energy from the sun, and we are beings that connect the earth and the sun because we stand upright. And that's, and I think the more we can figure out how to make that connection for people and make that connection ourselves, you know, we start speaking a language that everybody can understand. And I think it's the same way too with economics. I mean, economics for me in the healthcare realm was something that somebody else managed and attended to, but it's very much a part of this discussion too. You know, it's how everything moves together and functions. So I'm delighted because these are really exciting times to have all of these conversations taking place with with key players from all the different arenas in the same room at the same table. So.
Well, Kelly, I love that you raised your hand, and I love what you're sharing, because when I was putting this together with Nate and our team at Johnson Controls, I did do the different definitions of grounding, but my first thing was I really wanted to talk about different definitions of energy and how that resonates differently with different people. So I love that you brought that to fruition, because I think we have different ways that we look at the world. And as people like yourself, as there's a consumerism of healthcare, as they call it, right? We're coming armed to our providers with more information than they may have or not been taught in school. We're coming armed with solutions that we can provide for them and hopefully make our lives and their lives better. So I get really excited about that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And again, just to say that, you know, I'm so thankful to Simi for starting us off today. And as we were putting together this event, you know, at MWork, we tend to be a lot of sort of, you know, engineer types that are really good and really like numbers and machines and things. And, you know, and so I just think I'm so glad that you came to us, Simi, with this vision of starting us off today by thinking about, you know, some of these deeper purposes and reminding ourselves of the impact of this work that we're doing. So thank you for that. And again, thanks for starting us off.
My honor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to transition a bit. I mean, the rest of our time here, we're this next segment, we're going to hear from a couple speakers about projects that are happening, some pilots that are underway, and some case studies of the work that's already being done when it comes to, you know, energy innovation in the healthcare space. I'm really excited for our next speaker, and as you can see, let's see what's over here. Really thankful to Xcel Energy, you know, for sponsoring today's event, making this possible, being, you know, one of the leaders in our region that led us to think about this event and go, hey, we got some stories that we can tell and some real leadership happening in this space. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mike, and so excited for his presentation. Mike's going to be talking to us about a pilot program that they have going on related to resiliency. Mike Herro is a community service manager at Xcel Energy. He's based in La Crosse, but also leads the company's managed account team in Wisconsin. He's worked for Xcel Energy for 33 years, and prior to that, worked as a facility engineer at the Train Company, also there in La Crosse. He's active on many boards and volunteer activities in the La Crosse area, and is passionate about helping others. Mike has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from UW-Madison, go Badgers, and is a registered professional engineer in the state of Wisconsin. Mike is originally from Madison and is married and has 4 grown children and 4 grandchildren. So Mike, thanks for taking the time and being with us today. Really excited for you to kick us off and excited for your presentation. So go ahead.
Thanks, Nate. I'm very happy to hear that introduction. I must have wrote that a long time ago, but thank you, and it's great to be here today. Can you hear me okay on the audio? Is that okay today?
Yeah, we can see you and hear you great.
Okay, well, a couple of things just before I get going. I wore my Badger red. Simi, well, Nate, you didn't tell me I was going to be following someone who was on a TED Talk, so that just sort of knocked me down a couple notches before we got going here. But I really enjoyed Simi's presentation. I love the why stuff. I love the part about being on the patient side and seeing all these things. And it actually brought me back to an occurrence in our life that, I mean, 8 years ago today, our 23-year-old son had a diving accident and became a quadriplegic. And so I was right in, as she talked about her experience, it brought me back to that and just seeing all the surroundings. So thank you very much for having me today at this conference. So I'm going to talk, and I think you guys have already jumped me over. I can change the slides. Let me double check here. Nate, have you shared screen yet or not?
I think, Mike, if you wouldn't mind just saying kind of next slide, and I think Emily can advance you.
Okay.
Otherwise, you should be able to just click your mouse and you should be good to go.
Here we go.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. That's right. There's a 4-second delay. I forgot about that. Thank you.
Right.
So today I'm going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to start out and just give a short background about Xcel Energy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about trends that that are going on in the United States and the world and our region that I've seen with the customers that I work with. And then I'm going to talk about resiliency and a new pilot program that we have that can be applicable to many industries, including the healthcare industry. So that's sort of what I'd like to accomplish today. Just a little more background on myself. So I have 4 engineering types that work for me in Wisconsin, and we have about 300 some customers. Many of them are healthcare customers, and all the way down to industrial customers. So we see a lot of interest lately in resiliency. So I think that's it's pretty cool that our company has a new pilot program. I think they can maybe fill that niche for some people. So a little bit about Xcel Energy. We're a fairly large utility. I think at one point we were 4th or 5th largest gas and electric combined utility in the country. We serve 8 states. We have our northern section there where our main hub is Minneapolis. That's where our headquarters is. We dive into Wisconsin. Here we have the northwest and west part of Wisconsin, but we also touch into the Dakotas. And then we do serve Denver metro area and down into Texas. Very well known for wind energy. Our service territory happens to sit in a great wind spot in western Minnesota and the eastern part of the Dakotas. We're known also for the energy efficiency, carbon emissions. We're the first utility, I think, to say that we're going to aspire to be carbon neutral by 2050. We do a lot of energy technology, and we're very well known for our linemen, line workers who go out and do storm restoration. So I have to correct myself. I said carbon neutral, carbon free by 2050. Sorry about that. So a little bit deeper dive into Wisconsin here. We serve about 250,000 customers. We're not in the metro areas, although our 2 largest cities are La Crosse, Ryman, and Eau Claire. We go all the way up. We have a beautiful service area. We border Lake Superior up to the north and the Mississippi River on the western side of the state here. So I talk about trends, and these are, what I think local, national, and global. A lot more digitalization. So when I started working with customers years ago, yeah, there was some digital stuff out there, but not a lot. Everything was pneumatics and that type of thing. But lately, the last decade or so, reliable power has really been a mainstay with our customers. As everybody knows, we seem to have more extreme weather, whether it's tornadoes, that type of thing, droughts. We've all heard actually recently too about domestic terrorism and international terrorism, both physical and cyber. But some of the technology advancements have made some of the options more affordable. And And then also there's a study out there that said by 2040, there'll be over $24 trillion spent on resiliency worldwide. So more of our customers are pursuing energy resiliency. This is a model that I stole from someone that we recently hired, but I like it. It talks a little bit about if you want to do resiliency, you really need to get these first two base areas figured out first, and it's your infrastructure. Make sure, I've been in healthcare facilities with large transformers inside buildings and in unsafe environments. You need to get all your infrastructure up to speed, and then also do all your due diligence and energy efficiency. Now, many of you, I'm sure on the call, have been doing the energy efficiency end of it for many years, but those are really the two main building blocks before you get into, some of the resiliency work and the special things that are out there now. Although all healthcare facilities do have the backup generation, that is out there already. The other thing too is Excel and many utilities have normally been involved in the demand strategy, in the bottom three there, the demand strategies, energy efficiency, and infrastructure. With this pilot program that we've been approved for by the Public Service Commission, it's our resiliency pilot program, we're able to jump into those top two, the renewables a little bit more for our customers, and then the resiliency part of it, looking at microgrids, battery storage, and different things like that. So here's just the summary of our pilot program. It was just approved a few months ago. We have customers we're already engaging with. So it provides customers a convenient, affordable option for increased resiliency. And like I said, we're seeing a variety of sectors very interested in this. What we will do is design, install, operate, and maintain. And this, I highlighted selected because it is selected resiliency assets through contracted services. We're going to work with our partners to do this. We have some expertise, but not all the expertise, but we're going to pull all this together. And then these assets that I mentioned above could include, batteries, solar, backup generators, and microgrid support technology, things like that. Also part of that program, it's unsubsidized pilot program, meaning all of our other ratepayers are not paying for this. This is a standalone program, and at Excel here in Wisconsin in particular, a lot of our pilot programs, we want to make sure that let's say the residential customers are not subsidizing this. The one unique part of this, the capital and O&M charges can be paid for through on-bill charges or on-bill methods. That's new. It's open to our medium and large commercial industrial customers. Like I mentioned, we have healthcare facilities, we have wastewater treatment plants interested in this, we have counties interested in this, we have military facilities that have expressed a desire for this. Also, the customer receives the benefits of the on-site assets during normal operation. So let's say a solar field is included in this package, they're able to utilize that solar energy for their needs. And all assets through this program are behind a single electric meter, which is, that is a change for us. As many of you know, traditionally, when you think of utility, we're the guys that bring it to the meter and the customer takes it from there. This program goes beyond the electric meter. Similar to, actually, we just started an electric vehicle program for commercial customers and residential customers where we're going a little bit beyond that meter, which is new. So here's just a quick example of what this could look like. Now you could change many parts of this, but if you have a customer over here on your right, let's say they have they put up some solar panels a while ago or want to put up some solar panels. We could come in with our resiliency service and we could supply the emergency generator, whether that's natural gas or oil. We could provide microgrid controls if they want to do some type of a microgrid and disconnect from the grid. And we could supply and, maintain the battery. But like I said, this could change, around. Maybe Excel would own the, or maybe the customer would own the battery or something like that. Each one of these projects that we're going to do, and I'd like to give you a track record of what we've done, but it is so new, we haven't got any in the books yet, but we're working with customers and they're very excited about it. But each one is going to be unique. And as you see on the left, that's traditionally where we've been, is sort of on the electric grid in a single meter. So here's some of the benefits of this. It's, like I said, it's very innovative, first of its kind. We are looking at other products similar to this in our other states. We serve 8 states, and the other states that we do serve. One of the big things, I think, it really lowers upfront capital investment for customers. We will just, this will be a 10 to 20 year contract. We'll put it on your bill. There are some, if we're working with some cities now that maybe have multiple buildings in a certain area that they want to do sort of a microgrid type thing behind a single meter, we can do that. Like I said before, customers can bring their own assets to a particular project. If they want to run and own the solar field, great. We'll just work it out in the contract and how we split that out. And if someone really wanted to be 100% renewable, they can take, our renewable percentage, which is now about like 29%. Carbon-free electricity with a combination of on-site solar. We can do a project and then they can go on to our Renewable Connect program for the remaining part of that. So it's a really neat program. Like I said, it's in its infancy. Our guys are out working with customers that have expressed interest in this. We've hired a couple people that are experienced in this type of field, and we're excited to see where this goes and how we can help our customers. So with that, I will take questions. I know we're going to do real short presentations here today, and Nate, like I said, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mike. I should say at the beginning too, sort of as we were thinking about today's event. I mean, these are this could be a multi-day discussion, right, about healthcare and healthcare needs and facilities and energy, and so. But we thought, hey, let's do some sort of pretty quick presentations in succession, get people a lot of content with the idea that our role here is to, if nothing else, is to make connections with the idea that all of you are capable of networking and following up with folks in the future with additional questions. But yeah, love it. Again, anybody chime in with questions, let us know, raise your hand. Mike, I'm curious to start us off. I mean, just given that Excel, I mean, we're focused on Wisconsin, but you do have operations and territory in other regions, other states. Talk to me about that perspective a bit, about resiliency as you all are thinking about it, in Wisconsin, but also elsewhere. Any reflections on that?
Well, I guess reflections. I know I can give you an example for military bases. I know military bases all around the country, probably in the last 5 years, shifted from, hey, we're going to be energy efficient to a more resilient theme. And we're seeing a lot of projects and a lot of bases, I think, that are interested in this. They have money available to put into this type of work. And so, that's one that crosses all borders, across the state border. We're going to have a lot of military bases here in Wisconsin, but that goes all over. We also have many corporate customers who have maybe plants and operations here in our service territory that a lot of times these, they may say we're going to be carbon free or we're going to be more resilient. So it's a little bit coming from the corporate side down to the various operations that we work with. Then we're often working with them because they come to us and say, boy, this is what we have to do. What do you think? What can we offer, or what can we do as a project? So we're seeing a little bit of that too. Not so much in resiliency. That's been more on the renewables and that type of thing the last few years, as they get, as a sort of a top-down general rule that they, or general tactic they want to pursue. So we're seeing some of that. I know as a corporately, we've looked at this program and other programs that we're going to be announcing, and most of them we're going to try to implement in all of the states that we serve. As you probably know, to do this, so a lot of times we have to go in front of the Public Service Commission and get approval for these type of programs, and we're in the process of doing this for this well, we just did it for this one as a pilot, but our other states are going to follow soon, probably with similar programs.
And maybe you mentioned it, I missed it, but does this pilot have a certain, do you have a timeline in terms of when, if we were to book you again in the future, of when you might, sort of plan to report back on how the pilot went, or that kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, these, I don't know if I could give you a timeline, but it's not, as you can imagine, it's not as easy as saying, I think we're going to change out this conference room to LED lights, and that could be done in a month. This is a much more engineering intensive process. So, I would say in about a year we should hopefully have a couple under our belt, and just to see how they're going. And we're learning. Our reps out there are trying to figure this out and try to match the customers with the new product to see how it will go. But I would say in a year or two here we'll have a few projects underway or already completed.
Great, and thank you for that. I do see we have a question here in the comments. I'll go ahead and read it. This is from Jeff Mackey. As part of the resiliency pilot, do you help customers figure out their energy asset roadmap to resiliency, similar to the pyramid you presented? My experience, this is Jeff talking, my experience to backup systems with healthcare is that only essential services such as operating rooms and lighting are included as essential.
That's a great question. I mean, the way I envision this, we certainly will be right in there with the customer to figure this stuff out. I mean, to try to, look at their usage, look at, where their needs are, where they have to be resilient, because he's right. I mean, in many of these cases, we're not going to be resilient for the whole facility. It'd be just a section of that facility. And I know healthcare facilities, the backup generation, that's a big deal. You need to make sure that all works right and is there when needed. We talk about, when a previous speaker was talking, I remembered, I had another son that was having knee surgery one time, and the lights went out. And while I was waiting in the waiting room, and I was getting the calls from that hospital saying, "Hey, Mike, what's going on with the power?" Well, I was in their waiting room, and I said, "Yeah, I know you guys are out. Let's see what we can do." So we would certainly, the way I envision this, we will look at this. I would say healthcare facilities are a little bit more complicated. Where you're working with an industry that's already set up pretty good protocol for backup generation. When they have to test these generators, backups to backups, that type of thing. We're seeing in other facilities, for example, military facilities, what a lot of them will do is they'll identify their crucial aspects of their business. And for example, a military base may say, "Hey, we really need that wastewater treatment plant to work." May not be what most people think, but if all heck breaks loose, we need to make sure that that's still working. So we're really trying to, and we will work with customers to help diagnose that. We're going to have good experts who will bring to the table to help with that.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much. We'll set a calendar reminder to follow up, and we won't hold you to it, but a year or so from now, and hear about this. I think it's fantastic that we get a chance to talk about a new pilot that is so young, just again another reason why we felt like having this event now was such good timing because of the work that's going on at Excel. So thank you for your time this morning. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Nate. And like I said, I'm sorry I can't give you, as an engineer, I like to tell you about how we started and how we finished. I'm not at that point yet, but we've got some pretty exciting projects out there. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Awesome. Thank you. All right, fantastic. So again, we're gonna go pretty rapid fire through presentations. I'm excited for this, hearing from lots of different voices, lots of different perspectives. At this stage in the program, we thought it would be nice to hear about some projects that have been done. You know, some case studies of where we have seen energy innovation be implemented in the state of Wisconsin. And so, you know, the perfect people to talk about that are obviously the folks over at Focus on Energy, as well as talk about some of the current incentives that they have in place to encourage more of this. So with that, I'm excited to welcome our next speaker, Calleb. Calleb is an energy advisor with Focus on Energy. He has been working with the Focus on Energy program for 4 years. His work area primarily covers the southeast region of Wisconsin. And as an advisor, he works with commercial customers finding energy conservation opportunities and assisting with their focus on energy incentives and applications. Calleb holds a BS in energy and environmental technology, along with multiple LED, AP accreditations, and is a professional certified energy manager. So Calleb, Zyduck, welcome, and really excited that Focus on Energy was able to be a part of this program. We'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak Focus on Energy. I am having difficulties with the advancement of slides, however.
Let's just plan on having, if you'd be willing just to say next slide, and then we'll just plan on Emily doing it. I know that she's able to. She's got the master control. So let's just do that.
Awesome. Yeah. Next slide.
Thanks, Calleb. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah. So 2021 is actually the 20th year anniversary for Focus on Energy. So we've been out for a while. I think maybe the majority of the participants are familiar, but again, just wanting to give an overview of the program, as well as some case studies with some of the energy efficiency upgrades that have been done for healthcare customers. Next slide, please. So exactly what is Focus on Energy? Next slide, please. The official mission statement, Focus on Energy empowers the people and businesses of Wisconsin to make smart energy decisions with enduring economic benefits. Next slide. So Focus on Energy is Wisconsin's statewide utility incentive program. Essentially, we incentivize for qualifying energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades. Again, since 2001, 20th year anniversary, we've worked with eligible residents and businesses to install these energy efficiency projects. So I do want to say that eligible participants would be all customers of participating utilities. Obviously, some of the big ones: Excel, We Energies, Alliant, WPS. Next slide, please. So we do obviously provide financial incentives for these energy saving projects, LEDs, HVAC, process equipment, and so forth. But we also are able to provide technical assistance. We can provide the savings and payback for potential projects. We can provide best practice information and support various industries, as well as on-site support. Again, to identify opportunities. We do have prescriptive incentives. So these are kind of the common one-for-one replacements. We see them throughout the industries, and we do provide incentive catalogs. As you can see, we have the lighting, commercial refrigeration, process systems, HVAC. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So to start off with, lighting is a big one, you know, the low-hanging fruit, if you will. Very common upgrades that I personally see, especially through healthcare. You know, a lot of clinics, a lot of lobbies and so forth, the lighting's on more than 12 hours a day. So taking a look at upgrading to LEDs. So yeah, on average, the lighting represents 8%. Commercial facilities, you know, can be more with healthcare in particular. Replacing the interior and exterior, you can have significant savings. Next slide, please. So what I do want to mention is that when you're looking at LED upgrades, we want to ensure that the LEDs are Energy Star or DLC, which is Design Lights Consortium, listed. Again, my caveat here is get in contact with an EA, an energy advisor of your area right away. We can help you with that. You know, we can, you know, see what's being proposed, taking the product model number, making sure that it is Energy Star or DLC listed accordingly to qualify for incentives. Next slide, please. So we do have the comprehensive lighting solutions. So this is an avenue in which it's not a particular one-for-one LED upgrade, but for instance, the lighting that you're going to is DLC listed or Energy Star listed. And again, working with the EA, we can generate a workbook based on the wattage reduced to come up with an incentive for that. The CLS is a newer offering that we are seeing being used. Next slide, please. So here's just a quick sample lighting project. So if, for instance, you have a 4-lamp T8 fixture and you are looking to upgrade that with a 43-watt LED troffer, pretty common, I see it often, again, throughout healthcare. You're looking at the estimated costs here, the annual energy savings, we'll do the payback, and then the incentive as well. So as you can see, you know, with the incentive that can help drive energy efficiency projects to completion, a lot of times the financing is going to be a hurdle for customers. But if we're able to provide them with the incentive, you know, either internally, the decision making is much more favorable with that. Next slide, please. And again, along with lighting, we have our HVAC and plumbing incentives. Again, contingent on the operations, kind of what is existing and what you are looking to propose. There can be significant energy savings with HVAC energy efficiency upgrades. Next slide, please. Some of the common things that we see with our prescriptive are boilers and boiler control upgrades. We have the steam distribution, steam traps, steam pipe insulation, as well as furnaces and infrared unit heaters. Next slide, please. So here's a case study done. This was a boiler system. So the healthcare customer did a high turn down steam boiler burners. They did VFDs and controls. And as you can see here, the figures of that, there are 3 boilers, 4 pumps. The project cost was $278,000. As you can see, the annual savings with the proposed project, and the incentive ended up being $61,000. So a pretty significant incentive there to help kind of drive that project to completion, and with a 3-year payback. So that's pretty fantastic. Again, more common incentives that we offer, direct expansion systems, you know, rooftop units, chillers. Next slide. HVAC controls, that's what I personally am seeing a lot of, especially with healthcare, hospitals and clinics, looking at HVAC controls. You have your energy recovery ventilators, you have your economizers, ECMs, but demand control ventilation, especially for lobby areas or areas that have a large fluctuation of occupancy, that's a great area to look at for DCV. We have smart thermostats and VFDs as well are very common healthcare incentives that we see. And as well as, yes, hot water, the water heating incentive as well. Here's another sample of the project. This is with the VFD for the 20 horsepower air handling supply fan. Again, common upgrade that we see throughout. You can see that the estimated cost, the annual savings, the incentive of $700, and with that payback, bringing it down to less than a year and a half. Next slide. Here's a particular healthcare customer who did the HVAC control upgrade. So they added controls, replacing their pneumatic dampers with DDC. This was based on, they had a building automation system, and they wanted to drive more energy savings from that. It's a 40,000 square foot clinic. Again, you can kind of see the figures, the project cost, the incentive, $11,800 incentive, putting that payback, less than 10 years with a 15% reduction in energy usage. Yeah, in similar projects, we see payback less than 5 years. To kind of give you a summary of the prescription, the application process for prescriptive applications. It's found online. You would simply fill out your customer information, as well as the technical measures, if you will, what you are upgrading. And again, I stress, that's what I'm here for as an energy advisor, to help customers with that process, to make it as convenient as possible. Next slide. This is just showing, how you could do it if you have, maybe staff, administrative staff who takes that on. But again, working with an EA, this is something that I do every day, and would love to continue doing for customers. Next slide, please. Yep. Yes. So one thing to note for prescriptive. So prescriptive applications do not need any kind of pre-approval. However, we want to ensure that the products, the equipment that is being installed, qualify. If you were to proceed with a project, you have 60 days after the project has been installed and completed to submit the application. Again, working with an EA, that's kind of our duty to make sure everything's organized, tidied up, and we get that in well within that 60 days. But again, this is if you kind of are a go-getter and you like to do things on your own. Next slide. So custom incentives. Custom incentives are for the projects that don't meet our 1-for-1 or aren't within our prescriptive measures. The incentives are based on estimated first-year gas and electric energy savings, and projects must be within 1 to 10-year project payback. These are a little more work, per se, just getting proposals and making sure that we get pre-approval. Next slide, please. So here's a, yes, to put a stop. All custom incentives require pre-approval from the program before any equipment is ordered and installed. And again, this is kind of the work of an EA, is to get involved early. When proposals are obtained, we would work, put the workbooks together, generating those estimated savings so that the customer knows, hey, this is the estimated incentive, here's the project cost. Does this make sense? Does focus on energy, are they driving this project to completion, essentially is why we have those in place. Next slide, please. Typical custom incentives. So building automation systems and direct digital controls. That's, again, a huge one that I'm seeing with healthcare. A lot of going to the smart controls, but those aren't necessarily straightforward or common throughout each building. So each facility kind of has different existing equipment and operations. So that's why this would be custom to base the savings more closely with what is actually going on and what is being proposed. Next slide, please. So here's a case study of a direct, the steam boiler. So there was an instantaneous steam water heating system that was being proposed. This system that was proposed captures the energy from resulting flash steam, whereas the conventional system would waste energy. So we looked at that. We looked at what was existing, what was being proposed, and as you can see here, we had the incremental cost and the estimated therm savings. And so the total incentive of that particular project was over $10,000 with the payback of 3.75 years. Next slide, please. I'm actually personally working on a project at this time with these removable insulation blankets. They seem to be getting more popularity, more common, especially throughout healthcare. The project cost was $6,500 with the incentive of $1,800. Again, an easy to do project, especially with the removable, very customizable to the fittings and systems that are in place. Next slide. Retro commissioning. So I'm sure most people here know what the retro commissioning is, but this is a way of optimizing performance and efficiency of existing systems. So in short, making sure that you're not heating and cooling at the same time, making sure all of your systems are working together to maximize their efficiency, but also to maximize operations. Next slide. For the requirements of retro commissioning, the facility must be older than 5 years. They must have DDC, and you would have to work with a registered service provider with focus on energy. You can find those on our website through the search link that we have on the focusonenergy.com website. Next slide, please. So here are some common measures found with the retro commissioning. We have the outside air optimization, you have valve optimization, you have scheduling and setback, temperature setbacks, supply air resets, and VAV control. Next slide. So this is one in a medical office building. As you can see here, an older building constructed in 1967. The measures that were identified by the service provider was the discharge air temperature resets, economizing, as well as the unoccupied scheduling. A lot of times people kind of forget about that. There might be heating and cooling when occupants aren't even, in the building. So through the assessment, the energy savings you can see there, the project costs, as well as the incentive that was provided with the estimated payback. Next slide, please. Another retro commissioning for a hospital. Large hospital, as you can see, the study and implementation cost, the annual savings from those measures that were found, as well as the incentive $34,000 incentive, and the reduction of energy looking at 14%. And again, going through the common measures that we see: airflow balancing, supply air temperature resets, scheduling, and so forth. Next slide, please. So if you are a healthcare provider, healthcare customer looking to expand or even build new, we do have a new construction program. That would be not with me. I would get you to the new construction team who could best assist. But these are for major renovations or, again, ground up building. There are 3 paths to participation with the new construction team: the energy design assistance, the energy design review, as well as the product and equipment incentives. Next slide, please. And so you see here kind of what each review and assistant avenue would entail. Product and equipment, those are projects that have already been completely designed and completed. There's still a chance for obviously incentives for those, but as you start out early on, there's available assistance and resources to do whole building analysis, as well as helping plan and provide best applications. Next slide, please. Renewable energy. That's a big one. So renewable energy competitive incentive program. So change since previous years, we now, our Focus on Energy now provides prescriptive renewable rewards for solar PV. Next slide, please. So recip you can do, we would offer for biogas, biomass, solar thermal, and wind. Those would go through our request for proposal. These are issued 3 times a year, and the projects are evaluated and awarded based on feasibility. Next slide. And so the solar PV incentives are now prescriptive for both residential and commercial customers. The funding issued is based on total system size, as well as the updated, the amount that we have to offer, if you will, the pool is updated weekly. But again, the customer incentive is based on the system size and is limited though to $50,000. Next slide. Yep, next slide, sorry. So really, if you're looking to do any kind of energy efficiency, reach out to your EA, your energy advisor, whether that be an assigned energy advisor or one that's that covers your area. You know, starting out early is really the best plan of action. We can look at proposals. We can work with you to see what you're looking at. Maybe we can also help provide suggestions. But working with an EA just to make sure everything is tidied up and kind of moving along the appropriate track for the incentives. Next slide. So working with the trade allies, so we do have registered trade allies who provide additional support. So these trade allies or contractors are familiar with incentives, and especially they are the ones who know their equipment. So they can also provide you with additional resources or potentially workbooks that show the estimated savings, knowing exactly what their equipment does. We do have the Find a Trade Ally tool on our website. Again, focusonenergy.com. You can go there, find a trade ally. It's a search tool. You put in your zip code and local trade allies will be populated. So you can also determine, you know, which ones do lighting, HVAC, etc. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that hopefully I was cruising through those slides, but hopefully I provided some good insight and information. And yeah, any questions?
Yeah, Jeff, I saw that you put a question in the chat. If you'd like to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask that, that'd be great. And then we'll open it up for anybody else that has questions as well. So Jeff, why don't you get us started? Thanks so much, Caleb. That was a ton. That was great.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yep. Thanks, Nate. Hi, Caleb.
Greetings, Jeff.
Greetings. So I'm just wondering if I have no clue as to where I should begin, is there something that Focus can help me with just to even get started?
Yes, absolutely. So actually on our website, we do have some resources to use as far as common energy efficiency opportunities that we see through business segments, but also, again, connecting with an EA. You know, that's my job. We can set up even energy assessments, site assessments, to which I can, you know, come out now that COVID has kind of, the restrictions have lifted. I could come to your facility, meet with you, discuss, and we could even do a walkthrough. You know, I'll see what you have going on as far as lighting, HVAC, or if you had particular questions, or if you know, hey, you know, our boiler's kind of old, maintenance guy says it's kind of getting rickety, you know, that can certainly direct our talks. But yes, we do have resources on our website as well as connecting with an EA. Site assessments certainly do help to get kind of feet on the ground, see what you have going on, and helping determine some opportunities that way.
Great.
Thank you.
Kelly, I see you've got your hand raised. You can go ahead and go ahead. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, Caleb. Thank you so much for your work and presentation. It's kind of one of my questions that I posed in my presentation as well, but we rent our building. I'm the green team leader for Horizon Home Care and Hospice. We're about 600 members, and we've got 1 primary location and 3 satellite locations. we've got time lighting, and we've tried to do as much as we can from a rental standpoint to build in infrastructure that helps with our energy consumption. But we brought Train in, and I think I connected with Focus on Energy, and Train might have been like part of that. And then we just hit a dead end because it felt like the costs were going to be too high for us to make any changes until we renew our lease, at which point we can leverage that lease renewal with request sort of demand for some changes. Do you see another route? It feels like, as you know, it's not my area of expertise, so I don't even know really the questions to keep asking. And when my CEO says, okay, we can't go here, no go, I just, okay, I kind of zip it, but then I'm thinking, really, is there not more we can do? So question for you on that regard.
Yeah. So hopefully I'm understanding the question correctly. So, if we're looking at kind of financial dead ends, I think payback is a big one. A lot of businesses, right, have a certain criteria as far as payback, and we can help with that. So for instance, if you're looking at, say, hypothetically, you had a lobby, hey, we have old lighting, let's look at LEDs. You get a proposal in, the project cost is pretty high. We don't really, we don't have the funds for that. But working with an EA, we can provide that project payback, right? Saying, hey, this can be the payback, the energy savings, as well as focus on energy incentives. We can drive that payback down to 1.5 years, 2 years. Now, talking about renting, right? That's, if you have, say, a 5-year lease, right? You're looking at a specific payback realistically. But again, knowing what that payback is. Now, on the flip side of that, as far as kind of dead ends, if you have somebody come through, they make recommendations, it doesn't really work. Getting Focus on Energy and EA, right, to kind of take it a step further again. We can provide some technical and engineering resources with that as far as the lighting upgrades, HVAC. But also there are a lot of free energy efficiency opportunities, right? Just having the discussion with your staff as far as, turning lights off, or, what temperature set points do we have right now? Whether you're cranking that heat up to 75, having that talk, does 75, do we really need that 75? Can we go lower? Likewise, AC, talking about set points, that's something that's free, that's no cost. But so yes, there are a lot of no cost and low cost options available out there that I don't want to say are overlooked, but if you're not working with energy every day, maybe they're just not picked up on. Does that help? Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think with our lighting, switching to LED lighting, it turned out we'd have to change all of the housing for the lighting, which sort of escalated the cost quite a bit.
So, yeah, sorry, not to interrupt. So with that, if you have a fixture already, if it's a troffer, if it's a rectangle, 2x4, trying to explain, there are TLEDs on the market now. To where you can actually, there are plug and play where you would take the fluorescent tubes out and you can put in the TLEDs. Now, granted that they work with the existing ballast, a lot of a huge LED upgrade that I've worked with over the years is the TLED. It's a ballast bypass. So you keep the existing fixture, you put in the new TLEDs, and then it would require some additional working electric wiring, but you bypass the ballast. So you get the energy savings. You can keep the existing fixture. It's a cheaper upgrade, but yeah, that's very common. Yeah.
Great. So an energy advisor, is that a free consultation service?
Yes.
Like, could someone come in, look at the lighting, say, you could do this, it would take you this much time to receive a return on your investment for this kind of a change, at which point you start to save money?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So Certainly, like again, with COVID restrictions being lifted, we were having we were kind of recommending, over the phone talks. But yeah, a site assessment is free to customers, and again, having that discussion, seeing what exactly is going on, and again, when you're working in the energy field, you're able to pick up things that maybe a business owner or customer wouldn't necessarily look at. But yes, free service.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll call you, or should I, if I go on Focus on Energy and put in our zip code, will I get the contact information for the advisor?
Yes, so we do have an energy advisor map. But so that will populate your energy advisor for the area. But I can certainly make available my contact information as well to anybody seeking.
Perfect. And I did direct message you my email and phone number. So.
Perfect. Good deal.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank
awesome.
you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, Caleb.
Yes.
Caleb, this is Jeff. I just wanted to interject another part to Kelly's question. And as I, just full disclosure, I work with We Energy's customers, commercial and industrial customers. So as an energy advisor, so in the situation when you have a customer that's paying the bills, the electric bills or the gas bills, and they are in a lease situation, clearly you're not going to be investing in that building as the people that don't own the building. However, it is possible for you to work with the owner of that building, and that's one thing that we would strongly encourage. And there are a couple of ways that you can make it a mutually beneficial relationship when it comes to energy efficiency, especially as we're looking into the future and perhaps having a goal of net zero or something like that. And the first thing I would recommend is with an organization your size, Kelly, you've got enough bandwidth there. You should have some kind of you should probably have a landlord that's going to be willing to listen to what your requirements are. And so one thing you can use to help with your leasing situation is there is a so-called green lease or other type of building lease that incorporates energy efficiency and other views that you might be able to use it as a template to help you along that journey to making your building more energy, to make it perform better. The other thing you could look into is an alternative type of financing that benefits the landlord and indirectly benefits the company or the customer that has the lease. And in many places in Wisconsin, there's a program called PACE, which is property assessed something. Anyway, the point is these financial tools are available to help with getting projects done for energy efficiency or renewable energy purposes, but it's placed on the property itself. And so you would look to your local property tax entity, whether it's a city or your county, and you would see if they are participating in PACE. And what they would do is provide you with the financing up front. And so in this case, it would be financing that would be used by the landlord to do what you're trying to accomplish. And then that financing is placed on the property. So if the landlord chooses to sell, then that financing moves along with the property ownership. And so it takes the burden off of the customer that's leasing the building and helps invest in improving that property. So it works to, hopefully it's a win-win-win type of situation.
Great, that's very helpful. I took copious notes, and I'll reach out to you if I get to the point of trying to, it's like, I feel like certain things get lost in translation when I try to communicate to my CFO or CEO. I'm like, yeah, it's a really good idea. We should do this.
I hear what you're saying. I'm still hung up on the smart pillow that Simi mentioned at the very beginning. It's a lot of good information coming out today.
Yep.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Kelly.
Thank you, Jeff and Caleb.
Thank you, Jeff. That was fantastic insight. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly, for the questions. I love the sort of the specificity that we're getting on this call, and I again encourage that for everybody. But that was wonderful. Seeing no other questions, I'll give it a second. But seeing no other questions, I really want to thank Caleb, and I'm just thrilled that we're able to have Focus on Energy be a part of this call, give us some examples. It's powerful, I think, to see those numbers, see some of those payback periods, really good case studies, and exciting opportunities going forward. So thank you, Caleb.
Thank you.
I will say that we're running about 10 minutes ahead of time, and we have a super exciting panel coming up with some innovative technologies. We're going to be hearing from Eaton Corporation, Bloom Energy, which is a fuel cell company, as well as Clark Energy and their combined heat and power systems. Adam from Clark Energy is actually joining us from the United Kingdom, and I don't see him on quite yet. So I'm going to propose that we take a quick 10-minute break. We'll be right back at 12:50 Central Time, and that'll give Adam a time to join us, and then we'll be right back. So take a few minutes for yourself, stand up, and then we have our closing sessions here: technology innovation panel, and then a closing panel from the healthcare perspective with Kelly. So take 10 minutes. We'll see you right back here at 12:50.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for the late arrival. There was some technical difficulties, as is often the case with Zoom and Teams and all these other things we've been learning to use for the last 18 months.
Hey Adam, it's David with Bloom. I think we're just taking a short bio break here for a few minutes, and Nate was going to reconvene here probably in 3 to 4 minutes.
Thanks, Dave, for jumping in. Yeah, sorry about that. I stood up myself and walked away from the computer for just a second. Welcome, Adam. We're just taking a break to get us back on schedule. We'll reconvene here in about 4 minutes. Welcome.
Yeah, no worries, Nate. Thanks.
All right, everybody, I'll start to call folks back and we'll get started. So welcome back, folks. As a little bit of sort of reminder of the context here, you know, we started out this event by being grounded, by kind of reminding ourselves of why this topic of energy innovation, energy in the healthcare space is so meaningful, especially when it comes to thinking about patient outcomes and outcomes for the people that work at these healthcare facilities, along with, you know, obviously the energy savings and environmental benefits that come with some of these clean energy technologies. And then we heard from, you know, new pilot that Xcel Energy is doing, and this topic around resiliency being so powerful, you know, especially in healthcare settings. Then we got to hear from Focus on Energy and, you know, some case studies of projects that have been completed and, you know, hard numbers that we have on the savings that were achieved, these impressive payback periods. And then now we get to transition and hear from a panel of 3 experts, 3 different technologies that we're really excited about, really innovative, that have also proven themselves, but we also get to hear about kind of what's coming as well. And so very, very excited for this panel. I'm really excited to introduce. What I'll do here is I'm going to introduce all 3 of the panelists together. I'll give their bios. And then what we've asked them to do is just give some brief presentations. Again, each one of these technologies could I'm sure it does have its own, you know, conference on just technology. So they're going to be, they're being kind, and they're going to be brief and just give us, you know, about around a 15-minute kind of presentation about their technologies. And then we'll have a discussion time, question and answer. And so I'm really excited to have them. So first off, we have Adam Rye-Summerson. He is a chartered engineer with Clark Energy. Adam has a passion for energy efficiency and sustainability. He graduated with a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Liverpool in 2008 before embarking on his career with Clark. Adam has held roles focused on application design, technical sales, product development, and got placed in the United States in 2018 as a sales director. At Clark, he has helped develop specialist solutions in power generation applications throughout the UK, Ireland, the United States, and Africa. Adam enjoys adventures with his wife, Laura. And Adam, tell me the name of your 2 daughters so I get that right. What are their names? Oh, we still got you on mute.
Thanks, Nate. My toolbar's disappeared at the bottom of the screen. So it's Alice and Keris. They're quite common names in Wales, but with fairly nuanced spelling to how you might have heard them or seen them elsewhere in the world.
Love it, love it. I got 2 myself, so congrats on those girls. And then he's a big Liverpool Football Club supporter. So Adam, we'll have to arrange another call just to talk football, talk soccer. I bet there's a lot of us in the energy world. We could do that. So welcome to you. I'm really excited to hear from you in just a little bit.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is David Smith. David is a principal enterprise systems engineer with Bloom Energy. David is employed at Bloom and is supporting development of customer technical solutions and installation execution plans. David is responsible for driving resilient energy solutions and project development plans to support Bloom Energy's extensive customer base. With over a decade of experience in the AEC industry for healthcare facilities as a consulting engineer, David's 6 years at Bloom Energy. In those 6 years, he has successfully executed on projects both domestically and overseas. His portfolio of clean energy fuel cell projects include market segments of healthcare, life sciences, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, higher education, retail, and utility scale applications. David holds a BS in electrical engineering from Seattle Pacific University and is a registered professional engineer in the state of California. So Dave, welcome from California. Adam, welcome from the UK. And to continue on this theme of getting people from all over the place, next I'll introduce Justin Caron. Justin is the Director of Healthcare and Life Sciences for Eaton Corporation. He currently serves as strategic business leader for all of Eaton's activity in the healthcare industry. In his role, he develops strategic business relationships across the complete spectrum of care, including healthcare administrators, facility directors, and chief engineers, while leading Eaton's presence at the American Society of Healthcare Engineers to educate the industry on Eaton's most innovative offerings, including microgrids, cloud-based building analytics software, electrical vehicle charging, energy efficiency, and always on power. So as you can tell from these introductions, and I guess you should say Justin is joining us from Rhode Island. So again, just awesome to have people joining this call today, able to do this call from all over the place. Really appreciate your time. And as you can tell by those biographies, we're just thrilled by this panel to have such an expertise and folks who can tell us about these innovative technologies. With that, I'd love to get us going and turn it over to Adam, who will start us off with the presentations. And then, as I said, we'll have them each present. But as you, the listener, come up with questions and things, save those. We'll put those in the chat at the end, and also, have time to have a discussion with these three. So with that, Adam, I'd love to turn it over to you, and let's hear about Clark Energy.
Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Nate. And it's a really interesting kind of panel, and I'm very privileged to be involved. So I do appreciate the participation, guys. And I've spent a little bit of time in the upper Midwest and lived in Waukesha for a little while. Did attend a couple of MWork events whilst I was there, and was really quite enthusiastic about the approach that you've got up there to energy efficiency, which is not, I don't think, echoed around all of the United States. I think David will obviously protest that the East Coast is miles ahead. Sorry, the West Coast, and likewise the West Coast, the East Coast is somewhat ahead. What I was going to kind of try and do is set the scene a little bit with respect to Clark Energy's own involvement in healthcare and the things that we've done over the years. As a very, very brief introduction of where we've come from. We've been around for 30 odd years now, headquartered in the United Kingdom, and now represent Jenbacher or INEO Jenbacher in 27 countries worldwide, with an installed base of some 7.3 gigawatts. And that's an installed base that represents kind of both renewable and non-renewable applications. And globally, I think we've installed 200 megawatts worth of combined heat and power installations into hospitals, and then a further 50 or so megawatts into healthcare related industries. So be that equipment manufacture or indeed pharmaceutical applications. So there's a wide variety of applications that we have delivered into the healthcare industry, and the way that we've delivered that is through kind of being the go-to solutions provider for our customers, in so much as we're able to deliver quite simply a pure gas genset, or an all-encompassing energy center where we're integrating heating, cooling, sometimes CO2 recovery into a client's facility, right the way through to multi-megawatt power plants encompassing kind of all civils design, construction works, etc. And as well, more recently, looking towards the future and looking towards hybridized energy solutions, which some of my co-panelists I think will talk to it a little more detail. But if we kind of take a step back and look at the energy system in the main, essentially we're moving away from large centralized plant to a more decentralized system with power that flows both directions now. It's not just coming from the transmission systems to our point of use, it's flowing both ways. We have increased levels of penetration of renewables, intermittent renewables. We have a growing percentage of energy storage being applied to our networks and our systems. And also we've got electric vehicles and alternative fuels kind of coming into the mix. So we have a far more complex energy system than we've ever had, and that obviously adds to question marks around resiliency, around the sustainability of that overall network from a technical perspective, let alone from a carbon reduction perspective. But all of this is in the kind of the aim and the hope of of increasing our focus towards sustainability. And around the world, we're pouring billions of dollars into that kind of sustainability and carbon reduction programs. This includes kind of a move away from diesel fuel, backup storage systems, the gas systems in a backup sense, where historically the majority of our installations would have been prime power installations. So there's an interesting kind of nuanced development there. But all of this is in the aim of trying to kind of reduce carbon emissions, but from the perspective of increasing efficiency of our primary energy usage. Which brings us kind of onto those traditional drivers for on-site generation. And I always like to kind of refer to the energy triangle that has 3 points. And those 3 points are primarily economics. You know, essentially anything that we install needs to save us money or generate us revenue. Emissions reduction, moving forward, obviously with an increased focus on sustainability and on the pathway to net zero, we need to all endeavour to reduce our emissions as best we can. And also adding to system resiliency, in decreasing our dependency on grid supplied electricity, you know, and ensures that we have the ability to self-generate, which adds potentially to that kind of flexibility model, but also to the overall resiliency of an installation. But in order to do that, and in order to kind of address all of these issues, I do apologise. What we need to really do is look at each of your individual sites, and we need to appraise really all of that utility usage in the sense of looking at your interval data. You know, I think probably most of you on the call will have 15-minute interval imported electricity data from your utility provider. But then also to a degree, we need to understand any thermal usages that you have around the facility, be that heating or indeed cooling. And that could be cooling that is provided historically through adiabatic chillers or electric chillers. And likewise, your heating might be provided by gas-fired boilers, or in some circumstances, and I'm aware of a number of coal-fired energy centres that do still exist in the healthcare setting. So there's a very quick and easy feasibility analysis that we can undertake when we look at that data to kind of ascertain what sort of technology might work, what mix of technology might work for you, and subsequently the potential savings in both for financial and carbon reduction means, as well as adding, as I say, to your overall site resiliency. So looking at that kind of CHP application, combined heat and power, essentially we're taking a fuel which today could be natural gas, but in the future could be biomethane or hydrogen, and burning that in a combustion engine. And that combustion process drives an alternator to generate power, which can obviously offset imported electricity for your site, so you're self-generating electricity on the site. But also there are a number of thermal pickup points from the engine, from the lube oil circuit, the intercooler, the jacket cooling water circuit, and the engine exhaust, and we can recover that heat much in the same way as you turn on the heating in your car in the cold months of winter, and essentially what that is doing is taking heat from the engine bay and forcing that via a fan into the cockpit. In a similar fashion, we can recover that heat from the engine and utilize that to offset some of the work that your existing boiler infrastructure might be undertaking. Using technology known as absorption chilling, what we can also do is take some of that hot water to drive drive chilled water recovery, and again, finding that mix then of how the overall site operation varies throughout the course of the year. We can look at an installation that provides chilling throughout the summer months and heating throughout the winter months, so that you're getting the most out of this unit through kind of all operating profiles throughout the course of the year. But then as we continue to kind of look at how we're going to decarbonize energy within healthcare, we need to take a look at the kind of emerging technologies and other things that could support that which we're doing. I mentioned briefly biomethane and hydrogen as the next level of decarbonization of gas. Clearly our electricity networks are very advanced in decarbonization of grid supplied electricity, in so much as we've seen tremendous deployment of solar farms, of wind farms, and likewise now emerging more so in nowadays energy storage plants. But little focus has been provided towards decarbonising our gas supply in the past, and increased focus moving forward, which clearly will require government support throughout the globe, could help us decarbonise that methane molecule in natural gas to provide a low or a zero carbon fuel to our reciprocating gas engines. Beyond that, at the kind of the back end of the engine, we can look at carbon capture technologies. I mentioned CO2 recovery earlier, which is fairly common practice in the horticultural industry, where we're scrubbing the exhaust to clean out any nitrous oxides and carbon monoxides and any unburnt hydrocarbons to deliver essentially an exhaust emission, which is water vapor and CO2. And that CO2 can enhance the process of photosynthesis in a greenhouse setting. It can also be pressurized and provide the bubbles to your carbonated drinks or your beers, and there could be other industrial or medical uses for that carbon dioxide that's recovered. Equally, if we move into kind of the cityscape, and I'm just going to advance a couple of slides here actually. No, I'm not, because it's not there. Never mind. In the cityscape, it's important to kind of think about district energy, in so much as if we consider where the majority of our healthcare facilities are built, they are often close to other civil amenities, to residential areas, to schools and universities and colleges, and there is scope for kind of encompassing that within a district energy plant, whereby we can provide electricity, heating and cooling to a number of off-takers, and there the utility essentially becomes the energy provider, but an energy provider of low carbon, instantaneously available heat and power. And a hospital is a good anchor point for any district heating scheme, because it is a relatively large load that exists, you know, throughout all hours of the day. And then from a heating point of view, there's methodology moving away from gas-fired boilers in certain applications and in certain territories around the world to deploy heat pump technology, which, if you read the technical specifications, have very, very high coefficients of performance and claim to be low carbon and zero carbon. The reality is that they're only low carbon or zero carbon if the electricity being supplied to that heat pump is indeed green electricity in itself. So what we need to be aware of with any of these decarbonizing technologies is obviously what is the true impact, and I go back to that energy triangle in so much as what are the true carbon emissions of the technology, but also those other 2 points on the triangle. Is this technology going to make a financial saving to me or generate revenue for me, and is it going to add to my overall site resiliency, which in a electricity system that is becoming inherently more unstable because of the intermittent generation being added to it, site resiliency obviously plays an important factor in that which we're doing. There's a couple of information slides on here which I'm not going to go through in the interests of time, but I welcome any questions, and you know, if the guys kind of share this information afterwards, my details are included. But what I wanted to kind of summarize on really is that moving forward, a hybridized energy supply model is what's going to be important to not only to healthcare but to all industries. In reality, you know, the low carbon future solution isn't one technology versus another necessarily. It's not a gas engine versus a fuel cell, but the reality is actually both working together is probably going to provide you with the greatest level of savings and the greatest kind of advancement in terms of that net zero goal. I say advancement in so much as it's not as if by 2050 everyone in the world is going to be at a net zero point. Hopefully many of us have got there, but the reality is that actually we need to take incremental steps to get there. And if a natural gas fired CHP can provide us with a slight carbon reduction now, but offers us potentially $2 million worth of financial saving a year, well, that $2 million worth of saving could then be reinvested in other technologies. And that could be a fuel cell, it could be a heat pump, it could be indeed energy storage and renewables at the facility as well. And I think that that integrated energy solution is actually what's important moving forward. And that's something that we at Clark Energy are very kind of enthusiastic about and very interested in supporting your membership in trying to deliver that. That's my 15-minute piece. My details are on there. We have an office in Waukesha with the telephone number just there. One of my colleagues, Alan Howard, is on the call, and he's a fellow Brit, but he is located out in the United States just now. So the telephone number there, you can speak with Alan if you have any immediate questions, or please do reach out to me via email, and I'll support you guys. It's been a while since I've been out in the US, and I want to get back out there, so please give me an excuse to come.
Perfect, Adam. Thank you. Yeah, we'll work on that excuse. Sounds good. Thank you so much for getting us started. Perfect, fascinating stuff. David, we'll turn it over to you. Emma, if we could advance the slides to David, then we'll get going.
All right. Thank you, Nate, for the introductions here, and thank you to the Midwest Energy Research Consortium. I really want to thank again Simi's opening remarks, reminding us all why we're here, and really just want to ensure that the next 10-15 minutes here you get a snapshot of Bloom, but really from a standpoint of the why, as she pointed out. You know, we see ourselves being an integral technology to support all of our healthcare customers to doing what they do best, and that's, you know, taking care of our friends and families and loved ones during the ultimate time of need. So really appreciate that reminder of and mindset here of why we're here. Quick snapshot on Bloom Energy itself for those of you that aren't aware of who we are and what we do. We really are a leader in the fuel cell industry, specifically the solid oxide fuel cell technology. And similar to, you know, some of the points that Adam made with respect to the three pillars of energy, we really look at energy in the forms of cost predictability, resiliency and reliability, and sustainability, really being the important factors into deciding on the way you procure your energy and how you use it, and where you use it. So Bloom Energy, we have effectively over 0.5 gigawatt of fuel cells installed across our fleet. Over 700 sites are included in that fleet itself. Effectively, over 100 of those 700 sites are actually microgrid functionality. We are a leader in the microgrid provider industry as well with our solid oxide fuel cell. Real important takeaway here is that we're an always-on technology, generating electricity 24/7, 365. So kind of shifting the paradigm of reliability and resiliency from standby power to an always-on asset on your site that is leveraged to increase reliability and resiliency. And thirdly, from the the value proposition of sustainability, we generate electricity with an electrochemical reaction, meaning no combustion of any fuel sources. So we have an effective immediate impact on CO2 emissions. No NOx or SOx or carbon forming particulates are emitted from our system. So a great opportunity to increase air quality in or around our healthcare campuses. So you saw a number of, well, looks like our photos didn't print out here, but you saw a number of our healthcare customers on the previous slide at the bottom. We have over 60 healthcare deployments, and really leveraging our fuel cell platform in all cases to provide predictable energy costs and then riding on the value propositions from a sustainability standpoint and reliability standpoint. We will talk a little bit more about how our systems are fuel flexible. The majority of our installations and fleet ride on pipeline natural gas. We do have installations that use biogas, whether that be from a landfill, wastewater treatment plant, or some type of dairy institution. We are effectively cleaning up biogas and using that as a direct fuel source into our fuel cells for power generation. So we are very fuel flexible in that case. Our current fleet and technology can operate on a blended mix of pipeline natural gas and hydrogen. So for those areas of the country that are really looking to further reduce their CO2 emissions and leverage hydrogen as a fuel source, we're able to do that right now. And then launching our 100% hydrogen fuel cells here in the next 12 to 16 months in the US. So just at a high level, just real quickly how this works. What is a fuel cell? If you look at the center icon, directly labeled fuel cell, that's about the size of a drink coaster. And really what this is, it's a ceramic plate with an anode and a cathode on one side, on either side. And we effectively are able to flow a constant volume of fuel across one side, a constant volume of ambient air on the other side. And as the oxygen interacts with the hydrogen across that ceramic substrate, we're effectively able to produce a constant output of electricity. So again, electrochemical reaction, constant volume of fuel into the system, constant output of electricity. And this is the heart of the technology that is happening in every single system across our fleet. So from a standpoint of being really modular, combustion-free, and power-dense, there's effectively four things I'd like everybody to really take away from this particular slide, and we can certainly come back to it and talk through this, but we are always on with our internal fault-tolerant architecture and redundancy. We have effectively a very, very high availability of power. There is no downtime for any maintenance or service for the system. We can effectively hot swap 50 kilowatt increments out of your overall power center. Power electronics are N+1, redundancy, hot swappable. So we've really intentionally architected this entire technology with uptime and reliability as the utmost importance. The other few items I want to make sure we touch on here is the efficiency of the system. It's an all electrical conversion of gas fuel to electricity, starting in the 65% range, and then falling off down to perhaps 54% over a 10-year period. So that really high electrical efficiency value means our CO2 emissions are substantially less than other forms of combustion. And then effectively, as we move to 100% hydrogen, you can effectively be carbon zero. Another great, really important factor about from a sustainability standpoint on our technology is that we don't use water during normal operation. The electrochemical reaction is actually generating water as a byproduct, and then we effectively reuse that in a feedback loop into the input of our system. So great water savings, great air quality capabilities here. I'll jump to the next slide here. These are just a couple of examples of proven ride-through through disruptive events: Hurricane Sandy, earthquakes in California, Grid events certainly are things that can happen that we've protected our customers from. Physical damage, you can see a customer accidentally drove a forklift over the top of our systems, and only the damaged modules were shut off. The rest of the system kept running. And then in the face of wildfires, we've actually kept our systems up and running. So just the proven indicator here that the technology is proven to ride through all forms of events. As Adam noted, really the best solutions for microgrids from a standpoint of not only sustainability, but from reliability is capturing the capabilities of various technologies and bundling those all together. What I really want to highlight with this slide is Bloom being an always-on solution. We really are a very reliable source of power through multi-day outages. UPS technologies are great for transferring of power from one source of power to another. Generators are great for several day outages and really hardening your reliability, but fuel shortages can pose an issue. And then solar and renewables have incredible benefits, but can be intermittent. So bundling these all together, you really have a great opportunity to map your power generation to what your daily load profile will be. So in the case of a hospital, you may have a very relatively flat load profile over a 24-hour period. And in this case, you have your options of baseload generation technologies to support that, and then integrating any other solar or battery storage or rotating generators on top to handle peaks. Again, three-level setting here on clean, reliable, and affordable being as the main evaluations for selecting power and microgrids themselves. We really look at the healthcare industry with kind of these known challenges that are faced in thinking about reliability, sustainability, and cost effectiveness and economics. So don't need to read every point on this page, but these are some of the things that we hear from our healthcare customers and why they are using Bloom Energy. Certainly low margins with healthcare operations. Energy costs are significant. They consume a lot of energy. A lot of focus on energy efficiencies and infrastructure upgrades that are costly for facilities to continue to dedicate capital expenditures to. And then furthermore, during either catastrophic events or even during the pandemic, canceling of elective procedures, not allowing patients in the building, depending on the healthcare type of organization, that can greatly impact your bottom line. One of the big reasons we've gained a lot of interest recently through the pandemic is just our ability to supply reliable power without increasing any local air quality issues. Really a high sensitivity to respiratory illnesses and the link between local air pollution and the problems that can cause with respiratory illnesses. So due to Bloom's ability to not emit particulate matter, that's certainly been a interest of our healthcare customer base. Certainly, everybody knows the costs of outages here, so I won't spend a lot of time here. But again, highlighting that there is a business case to support the need for reliable energy at our healthcare customers. Working with several of our customers in the Northeast, we've effectively determined if they have to cancel elective procedures, they're going to lose effectively $500,000 a day in revenue. So we've looked at ways to help them, ensure they can maintain operations. From standpoint of where does Bloom really fit? Well, we're first and foremost, we're all about partnering with our customers and local utilities to ensure resiliency. So we can effectively develop solutions either behind the meter on the customer side to increase reliability and resiliency. And in some cases, we've worked and partnered directly with the utility to effectively relieve grid capacity in the area and provide additional reliability to functions in the local community that may need it most. So there's several different options here, things to consider as you really think holistically about what the healthcare facility ultimately needs. From a standpoint of where we look at interconnecting and supplying microgrid power, we all know the status quo is relying on standby emergency power sources, whether that be diesels or natural gas-fired resources, to really get operations running through any type of catastrophic grid outage. In many of these cases, since you would be relying only on backup standby power, you're going to be likely postponing elective procedures, shutting down various operations in the facility, and really going into a mode of ensuring life safety. And the new paradigm to consider here is with a resource like Bloom Energy and resilient microgrids, you can effectively keep your hospital normal power source up and running and still have the safety net of your code required standby generators to fall back on. So effectively the value proposition or argument to be made there is that you do have two sources of power available, with the existing standby emergency power resources being available behind the microgrid. I'm going to kind of speed up here, just a couple case studies to talk about as I pass the torch on here. This is in response to COVID surge that one of our customers was experiencing. We have an existing 1.2 megawatt system at this facility that did not have microgrid capabilities built into it. It was a 2015 sustainability project and cost savings project. But as the corporate campus or the healthcare campus found they were needing to support power to patient tents in the parking lot and elected to leverage Bloom to come in and supply some microgrid equipment to feed power directly to those patient COVID tents, highlighting our speed to deployment and then also the air quality issues or air quality benefits we had for not having to run standby generators in the parking lot next to patients with respiratory illnesses. And then lastly here, this is just a highlight case reference on a community-based project where we worked with the local utility and the community to effectively relieve grid capacity in a grid-constrained area, but also have included microgrid capabilities to supply power, grid-independent power to the supermarket, senior center, school, gas station, and library, effectively areas of public use that could be supported by the Bloom fuel cell in the event of a natural disaster. I will wrap up there, but in closing, Bloom's a valuable asset here on all resilient microgrids. Really want to make sure everyone is well aware of our fuel flexible capabilities moving forward. Because we are electrochemical reaction, we also further developing our carbon capture capabilities. All these wonderful, great capabilities that the market is really pushing for and our platform is readily equipped for. So thank you, Nate. Apologies for going over a few minutes here. Man, I get too excited to talk about certain things here. So.
Thanks, Dave. Exciting. Again, I think it's really interesting how these technologies. I mean, they're just exciting in their own right, but then when we apply them in the healthcare setting, some of these benefits, are just even more clear. So I think this is, I'm learning a lot, and thanks for that presentation. So as a reminder to folks, if you have questions that have come up, either so far for Adam or David, hold on to those. We're going to hear from Justin next, and then we'll have some time to let you ask questions. So again, this is great. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin with Eaton Corporation. Go ahead, Justin.
Here we go. Hey, Nate, can you hear me?
Yep, hear you loud and clear. Thanks, Justin.
All right, thanks everyone. Pleasure to be here this afternoon. Oops, with all of you. I'm already having technical difficulties. I apologize. I'm used to Microsoft Teams, so let me see how I can blow this up. That's not it. Sorry, folks. Here we go.
And Emily, now I don't see Justin's slides now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
Now I see you, Justin. So that's good.
Okay.
Oh, I think here we go. All right, now we see you, we hear you, we see your slides. We got it.
All right, thanks everyone. Some tough acts to follow here with Adam and David, and they covered some of the key points that I wanted to cover as well. So I'll try to run through whatever is potentially repetitive. Let's see. For some reason this isn't going forward.
Yep. Click the slide, and then you should be able to use your mouse and keyboard.
Okay. Oops. So for those of you that don't know us, here's a little bit of information about Eaton. We are actually headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. We actually have a pretty large facility up in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, where we actually have some microgrid capabilities up there. If anyone ever wants to take a tour there, or just let me know. We have a microgrid simulator, and we also have a working microgrid in our Menominee Falls location, which is pretty exciting. You know, Eaton is a large, diversified industrial business. As Nate offered up in my introduction, I'm actually the director of our life sciences and healthcare, but from the electrical group is where I focus. Eaton also gets involved on the industrial side as well, with aerospace, with hydraulics, vehicles, e-mobility. But for the sake of our discussion today, we're going to focus on what's the most important, which is the electrical distribution and those types of things. I mean, I'm not going to spend much time here. Adam actually talked about this. And this is kind of our philosophy moving forward. It's really everything as a grid, right? And everything has, you know, bi-directional power now, or I shouldn't say everything has that now. That the vision is that's where we'll be in 5 to 10 years, right? So whether it's your home, whether it's a hospital, whatever, a building, an industrial site, you'll have more of that bi-directional power. So essentially everything becomes, you know, a grid. And I want to kind of move into some of the topic today for us, which is microgrids. And I think David touched on some of this as well, but there's a lot of mega trends impacting our power grid. You can kind of look through all this, whether it's earthquakes, whether it's storm surges. You know, a big one right now is actually cybersecurity. So we have customers that, you know, they're not in California, they're not down in Florida, so they're not in earthquake zones or storm surge zones. They're actually in the heartland of our country, in the Midwest, and they're actually coming to us asking us about microgrids because of their concerns about cybersecurity, that the power grid could be shut down, and therefore their hospital could be vulnerable. I think the other gentleman touched upon this as well, but there's certainly certain aspects of why you might be interested in looking at a microgrid. Obviously, resiliency is at the forefront of that, having, you know, the availability, the always-on power, especially with patient care being involved. And then, of course, now with energy and optimization with different power sources, and also green energy as well. And that can include CHP, that can be solar, wind, you know, energy storage. So, you know, what does a microgrid look like, right? So on the left, you see, kind of the traditional way that a building gets connected to a power source. And then on the right, you can see kind of what tomorrow's microgrid looks like, where you have multiple different types of power, right? And that essentially gives you the ability, if you can control those different sources of power, gives you the ability to quote unquote island off of the grid and run your facility for an extended period of time. And I'll wait for this to kind of come up, but this is kind of, again, another illustration of what this microgrid of the future looks like. And the way you're able to, I guess, control, I guess the way a microgrid can function is through the controls, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. The control system is really that glue that helps you achieve, essentially that microgrid that can take all of these different, power generation, energy storage assets, and control them in a way that makes it useful for yourself as the building owner. Here's another type of example of how this microgrid control can add value. I want to really, I guess I'll, in the essence of time, skip over this because you can see some of the different use cases that, by when you actually install a microgrid controller, some of the functionality that's provided to you, whether it's, we talked about islanding, but there's also black start, frequency regulation, reconnection to the main grid as well. These are all use cases and functionality that you get to experience if you have a microgrid. And this is just a picture of, let me get this to come down here. Don't want to get into all these different key benefits and features, but this is a picture of what a microgrid controller looks like, just in case you're curious. So this, quote unquote black box can, sit within your facility, and this is something that's also up in our Menominee Falls Customer Experience Center that you can take a look at as well and get a feel for what this looks like. And again, I talked about some of the use cases. We call that microgrid controller a power expert energy optimizer. But again, this is some of the benefits when you install this type of system in your facility. Besides just islanding, even though islanding is typically, one of the main benefits that customers want to achieve, there's quite a few other use cases that are beneficial. This is actually another solution that we actually just released recently. This is kind of a switchboard. Some of you may be familiar with electrical distribution equipment, whether it's a switchboard, switchgear. This particular switchboard that we just introduced actually has an embedded microgrid controller system within it. So if you have a smaller scale building, it could be a medical office building, it could even be a smaller hospital. And this is be a perfect type of application for those types of facilities versus the previous solution I showed you, that microgrid controller is usually a larger scale device that works more like the campus type of environment. So if you had a healthcare campus, you may want to go with that black box, that microgrid controller, or if you just had a one-off building and you wanted to have a microgrid, you could use this integrated switchboard. What's kind of cool about this switchboard is that it also supports renewables, it supports EV charging, it has our latest and greatest intelligent circuit breakers and metering inside it as well. So a lot of cool features, around this new solution that we just launched. And we also do microgrid feasibility studies. So, people ask us all the time, hey, where do I get started? How do I go about even looking at whether a microgrid makes sense? And this is really the first step you can take, is to do one of these feasibility studies. You can work with Eaton. There's also several other organizations that do this as well. Consulting engineers, other manufacturers. That would be my recommendation to everyone, on this call is, think about having a microgrid feasibility study. Someone, an engineer, a team can come to your hospital, your campus, take a look at your assets, your infrastructure, and give you kind of a recommendation as to, what does that roadmap look like? What needs to happen in order for, for you to think about installing or implementing a microgrid. This is a picture of this is actually in Warrendale, Pennsylvania. This is another site that we have as well that's available to customers. It's called our PSEC. This is another Power System Experience Center. A lot of customers take advantage of this site as well because we also have a live working microgrid. So I definitely encourage any of you that might be interested in seeing this. That's also another opportunity for you. Here's kind of a list of all the different equipment that's at that facility. Solar, PV, we have wind, we have energy storage. And, when you can really just kind of roll through all the different use cases and really see the system function and get an idea for, what we're talking about with a microgrid. Sometimes it's easier to see everything. I'm one of those people that likes to see everything in person. It helps me visualize it better and get a better feel for, the technology. So, this type of opportunities are certainly, out there for all of you to take advantage. And so that's what I had today. Sorry I flew through that pretty quickly. I know we were short on time, and David and Adam did cover a lot of the same similar points, so I didn't want to be redundant. But again, if you're interested in seeing some of this technology in person or having some discussions about what a microgrid could look like, what it would do for you, please feel free to reach out. Here's some of my contact information. I also wanted to point out that we have actually worked quite closely with Bloom Energy over the years, collaborated on several different types of projects together. So if you were interested in anything that David talked about and you wanted to know if you can collaborate as well with Eaton, that's certainly also a possibility. So with that, Nate, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Justin, I don't know if it's just me, your audio fades in a little bit in and out. Sounds good a lot of the time, but a little quiet some other time too. So maybe when we go into the sort of discussion part of that, something to keep in mind. But great, and I really appreciate Dave, Adam, and Justin, your coordination with this panel too. I know it's not easy to speak one after another, and I really appreciate, like Justin, I love how you brought up that topic of cybersecurity, which hadn't been brought up in the other presentations, and so it's just really great how these presentations complemented each other, and to Adam, to bring up your point, even just how these technologies, probably the reality is that they complement each other even in general as solutions.
Absolutely.
In the setting. So that's wonderful. So Dave and Adam, I'd love for you to I guess come back on here, and then we're going to open it up for questions and discussions. I think I'll start us off by just saying, I'm curious. A theme here throughout today has been around advancing these technologies. I think obviously all of you laid out some really clear benefits, and so maybe we'll go kind of in the order that we presented. But what do you see as some of the drivers that we're increasingly seeing that are going to lead to these technologies being adopted at a higher rate? What are some of the drivers, maybe in different parts of the world or different settings, but what's going to speed up this acceleration in your mind? Maybe Adam, go ahead. We'll start with you.
Thanks, Nate. It's a very interesting topic, and for all the kind of the technological advancements that the United States is responsible for throughout history, energy, you guys are a little bit behind certain parts of the world right now, and that's a consequence of a number of administrations following each other, kind of incentivizing certain things over others, and as such, I think you can do what you could do well to look to Europe as to how energy policy and incentivization in the correct areas can help deploy certain carbon reducing technologies. I think I raised the point that there are a number of coal-fired boiler houses out there generating heat at sites, at individual sites, And in the 21st century, you know, there's no reason for that whatsoever. And gas is a viable alternative to help us on that path to net zero. Beyond that, yes, we need some form of government incentivization. And I think advising and supporting policymakers in how we frame any incentives is important. And I'll use a really poor example from the UK of how solar photovoltaic was incentivized in the early days in such a way that there's a high percentage of arable land right now in the UK that has solar farms on top of it. And you know, ultimately that's criminal. That is a farmer looking to make a buck rather than trying to contribute positively to carbon reduction. You know, ultimately we all still need food, and there's plenty of rooftop space, there's plenty of non-development or space that isn't land that isn't available for development that should be used. So you know, not only does financial incentive need to incentivize good practice, we as the kind of the experts in these fields and your organization need to help the policymakers in pulling that framework together. David, Justin, I don't know whether you guys had.
Yeah,
no, sure. I don't. David, you want to go first on that one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll echo Adam's comments. Certainly need, you know, regulatory and policy incentives to help drive, you know, cost-effective solutions that support sustainability goals, whether they're our own corporate responsibility, corporate social responsibility goals, or an overwide state area sustainability goal. So I really think that's likely the biggest kind of collective group effort that needs to happen. I would also say at the same time, we need to be very pragmatic about how we incrementally take steps to a 2040, 2045, 2050 carbon-free or carbon neutral goals. There are certainly some great initial steps we can take along the way to help advance, you know, take immediate carbon reductions and pollution reductions here in the next 5 years to get us incrementally along the way there. I think there's a lot of, well, certainly there's been a lot of, you know, looking for the catch-all solution that's going to get us immediately there in one big fell swoop. And that can cause problems. I mean, you know, certainly look at pockets of the United States or across the world where there is an excess of solar actually penetrating the grid during the day, where all these solar systems are effectively being curtailed. Same thing can happen with, you know, wind energy. Again, these are all great technologies, and I'm highlighting they play an incredibly important piece in the overall landscape of what we're trying to do. We just have to balance out the mix of how do we store that renewable energy and use it later in the day. Is that potentially with putting, you know, electrolyzer farms out at these large solar and wind location farms to store solar into hydrogen and make green hydrogen and then push it back through the pipeline. There's all these incredibly kind of complex synergies that these technologies can play off of each other, and we got to step up to the plate to be really inclusive of where each one fits and how it can play the most effective role. So.
Yeah, and I can chime in here. Hopefully you can hear me better, Nate. But you know, from my perspective, I think there's a lot that we need to do as, you know, I'll put the onus on folks like myself, you know, as the technology leaders. I mean, we need to make more standardized off-the-shelf solutions, kind of like what I showed in that microgrid switchboard, right? That makes it easier to, I don't want to say it's plug and play. I guess at a high level I could say that, but the reality is it's never always that easy. But we need to make standardized off-the-shelf solutions that are repeatable, right? So if every microgrid is going to cost, you know, it's going to require, you know, millions of dollars of custom engineering work, then it's just not economically possible for for hospitals and other clients to adopt this technology. So as a technology leader like Eaton, we need to do a better job, and our counterparts do as well, to create more standard off-the-shelf solutions, give our customers the confidence that these solutions can be designed, that they can be installed, commissioned correctly the first time, and that you're actually going to get the functionality that's promised to you. So, it's for me, that's a big driver that needs to happen as well.
Excellent. See if there are any questions from the audience. Again, encourage you to chime in if you have them. I'm curious about, I mentioned this earlier in our call about the consortium, Midwest Energy Research Consortium. Our goal is to, form these working groups and then take steps, do what we can to try to, to move this forward. I'm curious if you have thoughts about going forward. What are some topic areas that that a group like ours could dive into? And again, maybe if you'd also speak to that, with that Midwest context. I mean, all three of you, Adam, I know you spent time, right next door to Milwaukee and Waukesha there, but thinking about the Midwest, what advice might you have or thoughts about next steps, things to think about in the Midwest?
Yeah, I can start off if you guys don't mind, or
go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what I mentioned in my presentation. I think cybersecurity is a huge, factor right now. It affects everyone. I know in the Midwest, you may have, a lot of our customers have, reliable, always on power, right? It's you're not as vulnerable as other parts of the country right now, to disasters and storms. But cybersecurity, it's just, again, it's a driving force that touches everyone. And we saw with the Colonial Pipeline that things can just get shut down and outside of anyone's control. And so I think that's another key point that we all need to talk about. A lot of us have, legacy systems, especially hospitals that have been installed, decades ago, and there's a lot of vulnerabilities. And it's, these types of solutions, especially like a microgrid, can certainly be a key, a key remedy moving forward to protect ourselves in the loss of power from a cyber attack.
Yeah, and I think, beyond what we as technology providers can kind of bring to the discussion in terms of our own experience and expertise, I think the benefit of a group like this is that, you have a wide variety of people. Obviously, the topic of discussions today has been healthcare predominantly, but you're the Midwest Energy Research Consortium. So at the end of the day, the things that we are talking about are largely applicable to all sorts of industry, to to all of the cities in the area, to the water and the health boards. The important message, I think, is utilizing your voices and platform to knowledge share, and as much as that involves having guys like us talking about the positives, it's about sharing the things that haven't worked in the past. We are owned by Kohler, who anyone on the call, I imagine, in fact, everybody on this call know who Kohler Company are. But obviously for the Wisconsinites, they're on your doorstep. And, we as Clark Energy were asked to go into Kohler's facilities, including the headquarters just up the coast from Milwaukee. And I will honestly say it was one of the most difficult sells I've had in my entire career at Clark Energy, from the point of view as you're dealing with people that, to Justin's point, are used to the legacy equipment and they want their boiler house running in a certain way, and there's a reluctance almost to change because they don't understand necessarily the technology, and they don't understand. So that education, that knowledge sharing is a critical piece to this unlocking this net zero future.
Dave, any
Nate,
closing thoughts for us? Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I kind of think about it as the context of maybe the Midwest as a whole, and then into smaller geographic regions, you know, perhaps Wisconsin itself, and then down to the healthcare provider kind of campus level, really thinking about how does, as you change your region geographically and kind of zero in down to a end user customer, what are the where do they map to from a sustainability importance of energy when it comes to sustainability, reliability, and cost predictability? You know, because certainly in the context of healthcare customers, you know, they're going to have varying degrees of different importance across those three swim lanes. Whereas, you know, as you look at a holistic approach for an entire state, it may be vastly different, where we're really doing as much as we can collectively to drive to a sustainability goal, where perhaps down at the healthcare level, it's reliability and cost savings. So I think just understanding the context of the micro level up to the macro level, of how each one of those kind of viewpoints from energy procurement really changes, and what we can do to contribute to each subset. You know, how can our healthcare customers, how can we leverage them and equip them with solutions that can build up to an overall macro level goal of sustainability and reliability? So that's my thought.
Thanks, Dave. Jeff, I think you're going for the you know, most questions of the day award, so I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, what is the most questions award, by the way, for today? Anyway, I really welcome the input from a view other than the Midwest centric that we tend to hear. I think that's immensely valuable. So I'm curious, with this panel, is there opinion in general about the degree to which Europe has accepted carbon goals? And I do think that in general, the Europe you know, motivation to move forward with making changes is way ahead of where we are right now, and I could easily see that it's a tough sell to come into the Midwest and try to make a change there. Speaking as an energy advisor, I see it in my own work every day. So, I mean, to what extent is the U.S. behind what Europe is doing? Is there like a 60% acceptance that we need to do something? Is that what you would view if we looked at the US as being maybe 40% viewing that we've got to do something about carbon? How does the European market look?
It's a great question, Jeff. I mean, from my own experience, and then having dipped my toes both sides of the pond, I would probably say that the United States right now, if you were to average all of the United States, I would say you may be, you know, between 5 and 10 years behind the development cycle that we're seeing in Europe. But that isn't representative of all of the United States. And, you know, and obviously, you know, Dave's down there in California, and they're probably ahead of Europe in some respects, but also struggle in other respects because of kind of some of the natural events that affect certain parts of your country that don't affect Europe to quite a degree. I think what's happened here in the energy sense is we are, whilst we're you know a number of multiple countries connected from a very narrow kind of geographical perspective, but with a tremendous amount of societal differences and cultural differences, we haven't got much space, and we've had to think more proactively about how our industry continues to develop, about how our energy supplies continue to develop because of our growing populations. You know, the UK is one of the most energy population dense countries in the world. You know, 66 million people, approaching 70 million people in a country that's 800 miles long by what, 200, 300 miles wide. So it's, you know, we don't have a lot of space. And I think in the United States, you have always had so much space to expand out into that the focus hasn't really been on the impacts of industry, because you've not necessarily seen that unless you're right on top of it. Guys, I don't know whether you have any kind of different thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Adam, that there's certainly parts of the United States, whether it's New England, New York, certainly California, that are certainly, you know, ahead of the curve in some regards, right? But I think the Midwest, I mean, I'm heavily involved with ASHE, the American Society for Healthcare Engineers, and they have a program called Energy to Care. Not sure if anyone on the phone is familiar with that program, but there's a lot of states, I mean, Ohio especially, and others that are really leading the charge with that type of program. And you know, the healthcare industry trying to be proactive and aggressive in reducing their carbon emissions. And, you know, they're always having contests. I think the state of Ohio, as example, I think is right there with the state of California every year, really fighting back and forth with them to see which hospitals can reduce the most energy. So while it may not seem like the Midwest is doing everything it can, but from an outside perspective, I know it's taking strides. And you know, Europe definitely has taken some aggressive steps to reduce their carbon emissions, but a lot of their goals are so far pushed out that, you know, we'll see over the years if it actually comes to fruition or not, right?
And that's the important thing as well, Justin, that you know, we've got these targets, and each of the devolved administrations in the United Kingdom have their own target because they want to go one up on the other devolved. You know, England has a target of net zero for 2040. So Scotland went, well, we'll do it by 2038 then, and then Wales went, well, we'll do it by 2035. And the reality is we need a clear, structured roadmap with interim targets so that, you know, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, we know where we are. We can track our progress so that we can say, okay, actually, we think we're going to make it, or actually, guys, we're nowhere near, and the only way we can do it is through increased taxation, so that we can raise funds in government to incentivize technology X or Y, and that is the only reason I think why Europe is ahead, is because certain governments, you know, Germany, for example, have really heavily incentivized the research and development side of some of these technologies, so that we can, you know, really investigate the viability of hydrogen. Dave mentioned hydrogen earlier on, you know, investigating the viability of putting that into pipelines, or whether this is going to be, you know, suited to industrial users. And as much as the incentive of deployment of technology, it's the incentive of pursuing research and development, which is critical and obviously of interest to us as engineers.
Dave, do you have any kind of, you know, 1 or 2 minutes of thoughts wrapping up this panel?
Yeah, Adam's certainly more in tune with the comparisons from here in the States to that across the pond. But, you know, I just think there's a really, really big area to tie in a transportation with stationary energy power needs. Looking at a lot of facilities that are, again, hydrogen's a great example, looking at what they can do to reduce their carbon footprint across their transportation fleet, and looking at how they can dovetail in that or tie that together with how they operate their distribution facilities across several states. So if you're looking at, you know, hydrogen as one way to greatly reduce your carbon footprint, you know, you could, in theory, look at a centralized hydrogen type facility that is generating hydrogen with renewable energy, using that to effectively as a storage sink for energy to be used later in off-peak hours of renewable availability. Distribute that hydrogen into your fleet transportation trucks and use that to push your, distribute your product around a given area. So I'm looking for that type of thought leadership to really be present in what we're doing here in the United States. And again, it doesn't have to be hydrogen, but it's certainly cool technologies that are available like that show promise for us to really take the next step from where we are today and be a world leader in that aspect.
Nice, thanks, Dave. Alan, I want to recognize you for time here. So Alan Howard from Clark, one of our working group leaders. Alan, did you want to add a few words, and then I think we'll move on here pretty quickly to Kelly's presentation to close out the day. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you for the presentations thus far. Very informal. One of the key aspects, and Jeff raised a very valid point, obviously, like Adam, I'm a Brit, come across the pond. I've been in the US for 4 years. One of the challenging factors that we see, and it's in reference to Jeff's question, is the separation in utility incentives, i.e. state by state, regulated, non-regulated. There's some states that are leading the way. We see barriers with various demand charges, but from a federal standpoint, it's always, we want to equal a carbon reduction 2015 incentive. The education piece is definitely key to that, and the collaboration between various municipalities, various utilities is key also in incentivizing these technologies and educating the wider audience.
Thanks, Alan. All right, with that, just want to thank our presenters. Fantastic panel. Thank you. I learned a lot. Really appreciate the way, again, that all of you spoke together, and we look forward to learning more and tracking these things. Very exciting, all this progress and all this technology. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
With that, we get to end our day here. Again, the idea of this program was, let's bring on a speaker who can speak to the healthcare angle of this, someone from the healthcare background. I've had, offline preparing this event, had a real fun time talking with Kelly in preparation for this, and she'll talk to us. I don't want to steal the thunder too much, but I'm really intrigued by Kelly's perspective, her involvement with a lot of groups that are trying to advance energy innovation sort of from the inside, whether it be in a green team or an association. So I'm excited for Kelly to close out our day. Kelly DeMarco is an occupational therapist. Her career as an occupational therapist has encompassed a wide range of healthcare settings with diverse populations across the continental United States and in Northern Europe. She has had a longstanding passion for and commitment to environmental sustainability. Serving as Horizon Home Care's rehab manager and green team leader allows her to merge her dedication to thriving people with her passion for a thriving planet. As a national board certified health and wellness coach, Kelly specializes in addressing eco-anxiety through regenerative climate action coaching. Kelly is a member of Wisconsin Healthcare Professionals for Climate Action, Climate Coaching Alliance, and Women in Sustainability, a subgroup of Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. She and her family practice regenerative land management on a small farm property in northern Kettle Moraine, which Kelly, I'm sure, is just gorgeous this time of year and especially in the fall. So go ahead and take it away, Kelly. Thanks so much for being with us today and for closing us out.
Good to be here. Do I have control of the slides at this point?
Give it a try, Kelly, and if not, Emily is standing by at your command to advance slides when you need it. So.
There. Did
okay.
I do that? I think I did that. Let me try again. There. So
right.
The start is going to look a little familiar, but I promise it's not a repeat of what was said before. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. He's a thought leader, just a tremendous guy with a lot of great things to teach in terms of how to survive and thrive in the business arena in current day. And he really challenges people in businesses in all settings to start with why. I personally have done a lot of deep dive into this question. I think it's one of those things that drives me. I have to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing if I'm going to invest my precious energy into it. So these two are really at the heart of my why. My daughter, Analea, she's 13. My second daughter, Emma, who's 10. In this picture, you'll see a whole bunch of things if you look closely. One, they don't really look like that. Their mouths aren't quite that big. They've got some funny things in their mouths, but they both are in need of braces, which they currently have. My oldest daughter participated in a DARE training for drug awareness. She's also participating in a brain lab study to understand how the human brain develops through the adolescent ages with all that goes on with kids, you know, as they approach that age and transition from preteen to 18 years of age. My point here is that as parents and as keepers of our youth, we do a lot to care for our kids. You know, we get them the right educations, we provide them with healthcare. But the environment, as you guys know, I know we're all sitting at the same table having this discussion because we care about this together. Without a clean, healthy, thriving planet, we're missing the boat, no matter what else we invest our energy into with our children. So that's really what drives me in my own efforts on the climate action and sustainability front. My other driver is my parents. So this is a picture of my mom and dad. My father has Parkinson's. My dad also was an engineer for Caterpillar. So I grew up being around conversations much like the one that we're having today, not so much with the sustainability front, but I think a lot of the times my response was very similar when I'd listen to him talk as it was when I looked at some of the slides today. I'd have to pick my jaw up off the floor and say, what? Like, what are you talking about? If I needed to use a stapler, he would draw out the inside workings of how a stapler works, and then he'd hand it over and say, here you go. So I think that prepared me well to be speaking with you guys today. I feel, plus in college, for a period of time when I lived in Europe, I lived with 5 engineers who were both in engineering, and some were also in environmental economics. So that really left a mark on me too. My mom is my father's caretaker. My dad has Parkinson's. They don't know the exact origins of the Parkinson's, but there is some suspicion that it could be related to environmental toxins, heavy metals that he might have been exposed to. He worked for Caterpillar Tractor Company as an engineer, and he also worked in quality control. My mom spent much of her time, in addition to caring for us, caring for the elderly through playing music in hospitals and nursing homes. And so my experience with both of my parents really left a deep mark on me. All of our vacations with 5 kids were spent in the outdoors somewhere, usually camping, because that's what we could afford. At least I was the oldest of 5, so that's what we could afford as I grew up. Later on in my life, when I was 19 years old, we moved to Brussels, Belgium with Caterpillar. And I went to an international school, Vesalius College, and that really changed my world. It exposed me to a world that was much bigger, much more diverse, with considerations for things that were much different from the world that I grew up in, which was surrounded by, farmland and tractors. So as I said, I lived for a time with engineers, and it was in 1991 that I was standing in line at a grocery store and picked up a newspaper while standing in line. It was the International Herald Tribune, and it was an article that spoke about climate wars and the climate crisis and global warming. And my 19-year-old brain started to connect the dots, and my desire to serve and love for healthcare told me that whatever was on the horizon was not a good thing. And I had no idea how to dovetail my love for health with this concern, and felt like I needed to find a way to merge these two loves. So I think that for the next 30 years, this was really trying to find a way to bring these two loves and passions together, has really been the course that I charted. So I'd like to just pause for one moment and have you re-anchor into your why, because I think really it's there that we find common ground, we find common language. It's there where all of our industry-specific lingo, all of our educational backgrounds and differences, even our political divides, I think we meet in our why. My why probably looks very similar to yours. The people might look different, but I think at the heart of our efforts, it's the people that we love and care about most. And then it expands out from there. My why is also the land that we live on and all of the amazing places that I've had a chance to visit across the globe, that I really can't imagine living without. It disheartens me a great deal to know that my children, even now, when I take them to the Northern Kettle Moraine to Mothi Lake, it looks like a very different scene than it looked 15, 20 years ago when all of the ash trees still had beautiful golden leaves in the fall. Right now, all of those trees are barren because a ash borer made its way over on a Chinese shipping crate. I'm not blaming the Chinese, I promise. We were the ones who asked them to bring their goods over. And on that crate came a little bug that loved the ash trees, and now they're gone. So we live in a global world, and so we have global problems, and we all have to sit at the same table to solve these problems. So I'm delighted that as a healthcare worker, I can represent Wisconsin healthcare professionals for climate action, and I can be speaking to a group full of energy experts and engineers. And I'm delighted that you guys do what you do, because it is a world of, it's a whole way of thinking that my brain just doesn't operate that way. But I'm glad yours does, and I'm glad that we can meet in the middle and do this work together. So, Wisconsin Health Professionals for Climate Action. This organization, so I'll share a little bit more about my journey onto being a green team leader. But through being a green team leader and partnering with Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council, I became aware of WIPCA, and I attended their first conference, and I was all in. I was sitting in a room full of people who were committed to health, human health, public health, doctors, nurses, IT professionals, all of us really, therapists, physical therapists, not a lot of, I think I was the only occupational therapist in the room, but this organization is, we cover the full breadth of Wisconsin. A large contingency of us are from the Southeast Wisconsin area in Madison, which stands to reason since that's where the population mostly is. We united to advocate for climate action because of climate change's far-reaching and detrimental health impacts. We uphold the values that guide all health professionals, compassionate care, preventing illness, and promoting physical, mental, and social well-being. What's interesting for me, I've worked both in alternative medicine and in mainstream medicine as a healthcare practitioner. And what's interesting about the human body is that the physical manifestation of an illness, you know, it's a seed that gets planted and it begins to unravel within the body. It takes quite a while before that illness is observed. And I think that part of the reason that the climate crisis has reached the proportion that it has right now is because we don't see the physical manifestations of this for human beings. It's really hard to see it that way. In some areas I've lived, the ravages on the physical environment are quite evident. Here in Wisconsin, it's been a slower kind of creeping manifestation in the physical environment. But I think as for us, you know, beating a trail for others to follow, I think whatever ways we can help people connect the dots and connect with the things that you are experiencing in your body or the things that you're seeing in the physical landscape around you, this is evidence of the devastating effects of climate change. And that's what our role is as healthcare professionals, to help people connect those dots. What we do, we spread the message that the global climate crisis is a public health emergency. We advocate for equitable solutions to decrease the impact of climate change on human health. And we share climate health resources, educate, network, and empower our members to advocate for their community's health and catalyze the transition to climate smart healthcare in Wisconsin. So we meet I'm on 2 different committees. We meet twice a month. We roll up our sleeves. We have all kinds of conversations with the main goal of how do we get this message out to the people of Wisconsin, to the healthcare facilities, to the healthcare leadership, you know, and how do we empower residents of Wisconsin to demand this from their healthcare institutions? Because again, it's a both and. If the effort is coming from both directions, I think there's a faster way for us to meet in the middle. So we empower on both sides. Our values are health first. We're data-driven and outcome-oriented. We're all about empowerment. On our committees, everybody holds the power. Typically in a hospital setting, you know, the doctors at the top, maybe healthcare administrators are at the top, but then it's the physicians and then, you know, the head nurses, and it kind of trickles down from there. On our committees, as a part of WIPCA, we all hold the power and share the power and empower. That's our primary goal, is to educate and empower. We are about justice and equity. We prioritize relationship building, and we are nonpartisan. So one of our core tenets is anti-racism. We identify areas of racial disparity connected to climate and health. We evaluate internal and external policy proposals through an anti-racist lens. And we establish relationships and build connections to better understand the issues impacting Wisconsin's culturally and ethnically diverse population, especially those of minority groups who are living at or below the poverty line and most impacted by climate change. We engage Wisconsin healthcare systems to decrease CO2 emissions, improve climate resilient operations, help communities adapt to climate change, and inspire and empower healthcare leaders to advocate for climate policy. We're all about education and clinical integration, so we try to provide tools for healthcare clinicians throughout all settings to teach and educate their peers, their patients, people in the community. And we're also advocating for integration into curriculum through the academic training programs. We help create federal, state, and local climate change policy objectives, and we work towards implementation of those policies to decrease the impact of climate change on human health. Our members work on limited scope projects with tangible goals and objectives, like closing coal plants in Wisconsin and advocating for a transition to clean energy in our healthcare systems. So on a more personal note, I work as our green team leader. It was a very happy day for me. It felt like one of those days where the stars aligned when our maintenance director at the time, we had a conversation in a lunchroom and he said, "How would you like to start a green team with me?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" Really? And I said, "Is our leader, she okay with this?" And he's like, "Yep, we got the green light." So we had a team of I think 5 to start out with. Eventually everybody went different directions, so the team kind of fell apart. Then I took the reins of the team. They asked if I'd take over. So I gladly did. And I was probably the most outspoken one on the team. So it was not a hard sell for me to take that over. I didn't know where to go from there. So I started looking at what is Wisconsin doing? What are other facilities doing? Surely we're not the only one with some kind of a sustainability team. So I discovered Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. They have a really lovely Green Masters program and an application that's many, many pages long. And I said, well, first I looked at it and was totally intimidated by it. And then I thought, I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna like fill it out and give it my best shot. And then I set up a meeting with our CEO and said, would you go over this with me? I've got 10 different questions here I couldn't answer. It's a free application. There's no harm to our bottom line if we submit this. Let's just see what happens. So that was really, I think, the beginning of formalizing our efforts here. And then I started walking the grounds here and poking people intentionally and saying, so you care about the environment. Why aren't you on the green team? I'm pretty direct, but I do it with a smile. So I formed a green team. We had 7 people to start with. I've had many who are, I'd say they're in the millennial category, who have become new hires with us. Several of those I've hired myself, and they have joined our forces. They're delighted that we have a green team. They're ecstatic, actually. So I think for businesses that don't have one, it's an easy sell to have one because it's good for employee retention. It's good for morale, and it doesn't take a lot to impact your bottom line in a positive way. So Horizon, we provide home care and hospice services to the most vulnerable residents of Southeast Wisconsin. I've got a team that serves inner city Milwaukee. The needs of inner city Milwaukee people are very different from the needs of other outlying, more rural or less densely populated areas. Those residents, when there are snowstorms and blizzards and power outages and heat waves, they are the ones that are impacted most, as are the clinicians who service those areas. So when we're talking about energy and we're talking about the work that you guys do, there's lots of very direct ways that our people are impacted by a lack of energy. We are a not-for-profit agency. Our partner hospitals include Columbia St. Mary's in Milwaukee and Ozaki, Community Memorial Hospital, and Freighter Health. We have 600 employees, mostly women. And we were the recipient of Milwaukee Journal Sentinel's Top 100 Workplaces Award for the past 7 out of 11 years. and the Shepherd Express Best of Milwaukee Award in 2020. That was a hard-earned award coming through the pandemic, let me tell you.
Kelly, I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick, just because I know some folks might have to jump off here in a minute. I think, this is really, I think it's so interesting to have this perspective of, sort of the inside the healthcare facility and to get a first person account of, some of the motivations that and the process that would lead an institution to really pursue, these energy innovations and that can have an impact on climate change. So that's wonderful. I'd like to keep going. For folks that have to jump off, I just want to say that thank you for joining us today, number one, and also be on the lookout for follow-on events. I know that we've already heard from some bigger healthcare institutions, as well as folks that help design on the architectural front, that kind of thing, that they'd like to do a follow-up event probably later in the fall. So be on the lookout for that. And then again, follow up with us at MWork or any of the other speakers as well with follow-on things. But thank you for joining us today if you have to jump off. Otherwise, Kelly, why don't you continue going? Sorry for that interruption. So please continue.
I will, thank you. And if you hang in here, I promise I won't take too much more of your time. But, so our primary focus here at Horizon has been on trash, recycling, composting, looking at our supply chain. The areas that we haven't been able to dive into as much is really our energy consumption. We've managed it as best we can through automatic light shutoffs, and our HVAC system is timed. But there's more that we can do. So I'm delighted for some of the information that I received today from Jeff and Caleb, and we'll be reaching out to you guys if I need help furthering our efforts on that front. Let's see. We've also done a lot with employee education and engagement. We get a lot of information out to our people, our 600 employees, through weekly sustainability tips. Really educating them about, what can they do, what's happening here in the state of Wisconsin, how can they become better educated. We, try to make the issues bite-sized and digestible and action-oriented. Our unique strengths as our organization, we're 600. We're based here in Southeast Wisconsin. We're small enough that, with the right information, and if it's economically doable, it's pretty quick for us to implement change because, our leadership is right here in the building. I have easy access to them. Our CFO and CEO are both on our green team, and they're on board with our efforts. We have a very diverse workforce, a caring profession. So again, if the change makes sense and it's good for people, then it's not a hard sell, as long as we can make it work with our bottom line. Unique challenges are that we rent versus own our facilities. Places like Gunderson Hospital, Gunderson Healthcare System, they have an incredible green footprint. Their efforts are amazing, jaw-dropping actually. So it's nice to kind of hear that end of the spectrum on our WIPCA Wisconsin Healthcare Professionals calls, because I get to hear them, and we're all at the table in those meetings and have different issues. And I think for you guys working in the energy arena to better understand that, I think there's let me get to that next. So this is how can you help us? So I think speaking to you guys, if there are ways that you can help facilities like ours, like other healthcare facilities, we have so many other priorities. My leadership team trying to bring our teams through the pandemic this past year was a heroic effort. And so to kind of put attention off of a global pandemic and onto sustainability, it's just almost too much to bite off So helping us prioritize change by helping us know our options, making it clear and relevant to not only to our industry, but to our specific business entity and how we operate as a business. Being upfront and clear about cost and time and length of time it will take to receive a return on our investments. I know for my senior leadership team that's really hugely helpful. I think the longer it takes to kind of find that information, the faster it gets put on the side, because there's just so many competing priorities that need immediate attention, especially when we have, you know, state surveyors, joint commission surveyors coming into our building. They don't really care so much about sustainability. They care about, are we providing good quality healthcare and keeping our people safe? Providing us with examples. If you're this kind of industry and you rent your buildings, this could be helpful information for you. If you operate this kind of building, you know, I think having that information up front, as packaged as can be, as simple, direct, what's the next step? On my end, as a healthcare provider, I have the chore of taking big plans and watering them down into, this is what we're going to focus on this week. This is the step that you need to take next. I can see the mountain of steps coming behind that, but my work as a healthcare provider is to provide my patient with the one next step. And I think in terms of implementing change, and for us transitioning from, you know, one form of energy to clean energy, we're really talking about walking people through a process of change. And we're human beings, and you know, just making it easy to digest, easy to act on is really, I think, the fastest way forward. Oh, how do I go back? Is there a way to get back? There you go. Thank you. So, you know, at one point in my sustainability journey, early on, when I first became aware of the problem, I shortly after had an opportunity to participate in a waste stream analysis for Reuters news agency. It was basically collecting a week's worth of trash in Brussels, Belgium, in the parking garage, and really analyzing that trash and breaking it apart. And my eyes just wanted to pop out of my head when I realized the magnitude of the problem that was in front of me. Shortly after, I met somebody who was from Argentina who had spent 4 months on a bike and was returning for a year on a bike. And we had lots of conversations about the problem of trash. And all the synapses were connecting. And I said, you know, if you're going to go on a bike for a year, why not spread a message at the same time? You're going to touch every single province within that country, and you're going to have a captive audience because you look like a Martian on a bicycle. So thus was born the Argentina Bike Project, which was a 12,000-mile bicycle tour over the course of a year. I, an amateur cyclist, got on my rollers every single morning and started training, and I rode 4,300 miles myself on roads that look very much like this one here. And so, you know, you ride a road like that, you know, one rotation of the wheel at a time. But it's doable. It's a steep climb, but it's doable. And I've spent the past 30 years trying to merge these two loves of mine. And I'm at a point now where I'm like, holy cow, it's doable. We can do this. And when you guys as clean energy experts and me as an occupational therapist are sitting at the same table, talking about the same issue, sharing the same set of problems and trying to find solutions, I have hope. And I know that this is doable because we're here together, and together we are definitely better. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Nate, for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Kelly. Really wonderful way to close out our sessions today, and leave us inspired. So thank you, for that. I feel like it should just end on that. I was going to maybe ask questions, but I think that is wonderful. And again, it's I appreciate the healthcare community. I appreciate medical healthcare professionals for helping lend their voice to advancing these solutions. And I think it does tremendous value for all of our efforts. So I really appreciate that. Appreciate your group. Again, just want to say thanks to everybody. I know that we've had call numbers up and down, but appreciate all those that have stuck around till the end here. This recording will be made online, and we'll circulate it through our membership and our networks as well. And Kelly, I'd love to connect, work with you to help make sure that that word of this recording gets out through the healthcare networks as well. So thanks to everybody. Be on the lookout, as I said, for future events related to this topic, and really hope that everybody has a great rest of their Wednesday. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
you, everybody.
you.